Her story begins with a young girl who sleeps firmly, lost in the dream world. She wakes up suddenly, realizing that she had just had a predictable dream. One April day, she sits on a bus, immersed in a variety of thoughts. She understands that now is an important period when we need to focus on long-term workouts, because there is a chance to get to the national team. Time is not suitable to walk in plaster, she thinks, looking at the broken leg and blaming someone who is not so. She recalls how she got a fracture of her legs, trying to catch a brother who jumped from the building. She recalls that after her brother's rescue, her fortune has disappeared for a year or even longer. It is immersed in her thoughts, she notices the bus stops and a student comes from her school. Noticing how tall this guy is, she thinks whether he is really an athlete. She examines it continuously as he welcomes her and sits right in front of her. She carefully captures all the details: his piercings, shoulders, and aroma. She notes that she feels a barely pervasive aroma of soap, which will soon disappear with the morning air. It was so ridiculed that she was about to explode. After all, it seems that only she is one able to feel the aroma of soap. She tries to restrain laughter, tapping herself on the hips, which attracts the boy's attention. It rotates and whispers, calling it a pervert. It causes her full confusion. Then she realized that from the moment he went on the bus, she forgot about the competition. The girl, which we now know as Nazi, arrived at school where she met other students who ran and joked from her broken leg. Suddenly, her friend, Moon-ji-sun, approaches and offers to go together. The two, he asks if she pauses in training, and she claims that she is worth a little rest. They talk for a long time, and she involuntarily pays attention to his ears. And before her eyes, the image of a guy from the bus suddenly arises, and it makes her think about whether she really is a pervert. In the middle of the conversation, a girl named Yo-eun's passes, calling doubt on the presence of Nasjio, because she cannot even run. She adds with sarcasm that Navigo boasted that she would be on the national team at the Olympics. And now, not even I. Surprised by the herd, Mundi's lips are sleeping and says that this talkativeness can cause her great trouble. They joked a little, after which he went to wash. A little later, during a rolling in the classroom, the teacher notices the absence of Nay. She explains that she does not drive hatred, but that she hurts her to look, as she behaves like a genius, while really lonely and pathetic. On the other hand, a frowned leg, which tries to rise with the stairs with difficulty. She is worried about the pain and inconvenience she feels trying to move on one leg. She realizes that as long as she is lying, others, like Jo-hun's, will move forward rapidly, mocking her. This is really, as Yo Yun-soo said. She pretends to be strong, but in fact, the situation is difficult. Finally, reaching the top of the building, she hears a voice that says, "It is impossible to come there." Looking back, she sees the same guy from the bus. Anxiety covers her, but she tries to hide it by asking what he is talking about because he is there. Realizing that his initial plan has failed, the guy offers her a place, explaining that she will be visible from the sports ground if she stands. Seeing how careful the guy was, she confesses that she was in vain. She tries to sit down, and the guy reaches out her hand to help, but she refuses. He asks if he greeted her on the bus and whether they are familiar, but he decides to joke, pretending to be inattentive. Suddenly, he confidently exclaims his name, Cha Jiol, and notes that her face gave interest in his name, although she angrily denies it. It is surprising that his name consists of one hieroglyph, which is unusual for Korea. Over time, Geo is aware, and all this time, her thoughts emerge memories of first love, H2NS. In another scene, she talks to a trainer who asks her broken leg. However, her current state causes his confusion and lack of words. He advises not to strain and rest well until the doctors say that everything is fine. These words are imbued with anxiety, but feelings of hopelessness and disappointment inevitably appear. She seems that she probably has become a detached map in the plans of coaches, although it was inevitable. During the conversation, he confesses that he learned from her teacher about missing classes and asks whether she protests through the injury. Hearing this question, her thoughts suddenly return to the moment she fell asleep with her new friend Chagyol. Therefore, she explains to the coach that she simply fell asleep inadvertently. He understands that she is anxious due to injury. He again advises her to strengthen the spirit and focus only on the exercises during the year, because it is not the end. After their conversation, she thinks that she has reached this moment thanks to her own decisions. However, noticing that the events are not unfolding as she wants, she thinks, is she choosing at all? Or is she already unchanged, albeit another path? On the way back with the friend of Mon Giseng, she notes how he looks hard in the other direction and is interested in what he thinks. He explains that he seemed to have seen someone and invites her to enter the first one. Can it be so? Hurry up? She thinks. Meanwhile, Moon-gu-soon stands by the window and watches a fair-haired figure, similar to a brother of Us-ji-ho. He believes that she would be worried if he confessed. He came out alone, but standing there, he remembers the words Yo-un-soo, who said it was not necessary to stand on the side of a friend of Us-ji-ho. He goes for his brother to the place where he meets with friends. There he notices that some of them in their hands, even cigarettes. He turns to Nazo, but suddenly one guy is firmly grabbed and asks if he really wants to leave, and whether he guesses who it is. This is the guy from a bus that had a lot of piercing. Che. From his appearance, I already guessed that he was not one of those who did good deeds. Or maybe vice versa. Chegel asks Namseo if he is familiar with Mun Gusun, to which he confirms that he is a friend of his sister. Therefore, Chegel, still holding it, decides to go with him and send him to Moon Gusun, which surprised other guys. While he goes, holding his hand on his shoulders, he constantly ignores Moon Gisun, who constantly asks where he goes from Namo. Continuing to go, he tries to reassure Namo, who is still crying because of survived with other guys. After a while, he returns, and the surprised Moon-gi-san asks Namo whether something happened, and just goes away. What a disregard. In another scene, Natsuo lies on the bed, feeling bored. She looks at her phone, waiting for a reply from a girlfriend. Hearing the doorbell suddenly, she limps from the room, thinking it is a mom, but on the threshold reveals a brother who returned late. She asks why he was so slow, to what the brother answers that it does not concern her, and adds that she should die. Meanwhile, at home, he is trying to find out something from his brother who returned late. She even promises not to be angry if he leaves the room. Hearing a little, he asks why he constantly talks about her girlfriend Mon Giseng. Once she quarrels, he remembered the words they told him before, and he tells his sister that the reason is to ignore his children at school. She continues to ask him, but he only repeats that she knows nothing. Hearing this, Natsuo is quietly departing to cook something for his brother. She reports him of the finished. While she talks to him, her friend Mungidun tries to call her. During the conversation, Chagyol notes how she calls the phone in her pocket. She reports it. She takes the phone, and Mungidun immediately expresses her anxiety, as her brother told him. Despite his efforts to stay focused on the conversation to get the information you need, he constantly distracts it with gestures, forcing the call. After finishing, she returns to him with a serious expression, asks if he is familiar with her brother. However, he reminds her that for the first time she hears about her brother. Remembering the conversation with her girlfriend, she asks that he is hiding from her. Instead of answering, he proposes to spend her home, but she refuses and asks if he admits if they become closer. With a smile, he replies, "We will see." She thinks of herself. From the first moment of meeting with him, she decided to hear his words again, if they would be them. The next day, she communicates with Mes Gisen, who asked if she spoke with her brother. She replies that her brother closed the door and did not go to her, instead called Chagil. She is wondering if he saw this shugil with her brother or to get him. In fact, it's just a boy she doesn't know. She secretly desires that he is not associated with her brother, although she likes his bandit style. She also dreams that he is not a gangster and studied at their school. She dreams of being proud of her feelings for him without any hesitation because it does not allow her to think about anything else. The next day, he sits on the floor at school, muttering under his nose, while she is angry with sports equipment. Suddenly, Yoions go into the room, laughing and mocking. Despite the request of we to leave her alone, Yo Ai-su states that she is not for no reason. She confesses that she is bored, which he answers, that if so, let her use the inventory instead. "If I do it, you will become superfluous." Yo, Sue replies. It is as if it is not enough, it also comes on the already pure things and throws them. Throws the ball into her? How much more cruelty can you expect from this girl? In the Yo Yu training hall is given to the full, under the close look of the trainer. Despite her effort, he notes that her legs are still heavy and advises a little rest. He emphasizes that until Weijio, she has a chance to get a medal, because reflecting when the night came. She notices a jacket, but when she looks at her, hears Shigel's voice, who asks if she woke up. He even offers them a good time for the rest of the day. Is that it means that they were locked together? Concerned and a little awkward, she asks what he means. Without waiting for his answer, she quickly goes to the door, trying to escape, just to find that the door is closed. She tries to get the phone but remembers that she left it in the classroom. Therefore, he asks his phone and tells to try to call someone from the outside. To her astonishment, he replies that he cannot do it because his phone is discharged. This is incredibly annoyed by our heroine. Without the opportunity to get out of the warehouse, she begins to shout for help, but he reminds that everyone is probably watching a football match, so give up because no one will. She still thinks of his gentle touch before asking if he holds her hand with certain intentions. In her head, the thoughts are already swinging that he will play with her again. However, unexpectedly, he picks up his hand and apologizes immediately. He guesses that the door was deliberately closed by someone, and at that moment she illuminates the realization who is a true culprit. Barely crossing the mountain, Yunsa in anticipation when the door opens. She is angry, asks him if he covered her with his jacket. He confirms, saying she looked frozen. As soon as she woke up, she immediately apologized and confessed that everything happened unintentionally. She just was not in herself. The fact is that then she was very happy and paid all his attention to emotions, because she liked to be with him. If he only knew that she felt then, he would not speak tactless words. On the other hand, there is a friend of Chagyol who believes that being locked with the girl alone is good. Returning to the pantry, Chagyol asks Natsi if her legs froze, because she is in the skirt. After a brief dispute, Annie removes the jacket. She begins to show her how it can be used in her favor. She refuses again, and he jokes as he asks whether he should take his pants. She immediately screams from surprise, causing him laughter. Noticing his mood, she suggests that he is probably cold, so he invites you to come closer. But he refuses. He later decides to rely on her at least once. Although this is not the first time they sit so close, she is nervous for some reason. Noticing his appearance, she proposes to keep closer so that he is warmer, because it is his jacket. Having accepted the proposal, he moves closer and the other person remains in place. Natsuo cannot drive away the idea of how their shoulders barely touched, and her body immediately lit up from heat. She thinks that perhaps that is why people are hugging while watching catastrophes. He thinks. She says when Chaga is next to her in the warehouse, he can perceive relationships with her as a tragedy. The next morning, watching she sleeps, he gently says her name, reminding that time to wake up, because people will soon appear. Wearing a jacket, he asks her to pretend as if they are unfamiliar when they go outside. When her question, "Why?" replies, "I like so much more." Embarrassed, she tries to know more, but he is silent and starts knocking on the door, calling for help. Fortunately, at this moment, a security guard passes nearby. She is still trying to understand what he means. She calls him, but he shows a gesture to be quiet. And so the security guard opens the door and asks how much he is here. He only replies that there is another person inside. When the guard confirms his words, he asks Nazo if she is familiar with the guy who has just left. Remembering his preliminary instruction, she denies acquaintance with him. Now, when he is on the street, Chagil climbs the stairs, possibly heading to his friend's house. When he reaches the destination, a friend with a swollen face comes to the meeting. Chagil is surprised to see and proposes to talk outside, which he agrees with. Not having time to navigate, his friend grabs Chagil by his face, saying that he wants. Holding his face in his hands, he threatens never to tell how and why he was injured, whatever happens. On the same day, the teacher approaches his stay in the pantry. The coach said she had not come for a long time, and the pantry was closed, so no, she has always warned her in advance if she is delayed or not going to return home. She assured the teacher who told her parents as if she had fallen asleep at school, so there were no problems. To facilitate the investigation, he asked if she suspect. Recently, his father's illness was the main concern, and she does not even know when he can work. Delivered in reflection, she decides to inform the teacher so that he does not tell her mother details and simply leave everything as is. After all, that evening was not so bad. In an instant, she falls asleep firmly and she dreams of a very strange dream about Chagulu and his friend. Suddenly waking up, she thinks why she dreams of such strange dreams. Last time, she saw that she did not receive a medal, and this time she dreamed of Chagall. But one question does not rest. Who is it competing with, and why does it partially recognize this face? Opening her eyes, she notices next to Mungisun. They leave the office, and he is wondering what happened to her. Even after she explained, he still doubts that it is all the truth. Only she is about to open the door as, despite his proposal to help, suddenly stumbles. He has nothing left but to pick it up on the fly. We can say that our heroine is quite a stubborn person. Moon Gu-sung keeps her so long until she reminds him of letting go. After that, the girl explains that she has many reasons for annoyance, so she should not add. When he asks what he annoys her, she notes that her legs, Yoin's, and even opening the door. He quickly remembers an accidental meeting with her. She asks us what she would do if Yoin's really wanted to get closer to her. She just smiles in response, considering it impossible because she always disliked her. He notes that they have become older and even strangely assume that they want to get closer now. At this time, Yoin sits on the stairs and hears their converse. He has no connection with him and does not know him. Like real caretakers, one of them tries to hit the guy after his words, but Woo Jin stops him. Want to know more? After learning that they are not relatives, he wonders why he did it then, and thinks of who we are in fact. Meanwhile, Wee Ji-oh, which feels tension in the leg while walking, suddenly hears laughter. Continuing her way, she faces a group of young boys. To her surprise, she sees our brother's young boys to us. He is sweaty as soon as he notices his sister, and she gestures, invites him to come closer. Taking it to a place inaccessible to others, he asks what she is doing here. She also gives him a lie. After closing the pantry door, Nazo asks whether it is possible to go with his sister into the corner. The request is approved. He is also advised to take a drink when he returns. When he walks with his sister, she notices her silence and asks if she is afraid, but she does not answer. He assures that if she is late, he will be with her friends she saw earlier. He asks to pass it on to his mom and give some money to buy a drink he asked for Woojin. As soon as he is about to shove her hand in her pocket as she quickly grabs him, and she says she has already seen this guy, but her brother suggests that it is only because they studied at one school. To his surprise, she remembers that she saw him in a dream and is sure that he is he. She asks why he beats with Che. Returning to the class, we are surrounded by excited classmates who ask her well-being. She assures that he is not sick, just immersed in some thoughts. Today, their behavior seems especially unusual, and she does not. She also asks why the girl suddenly complains about the smell of food, although it is not the first time she orders chicken breasts in a restaurant. She notes that they have always eaten in the classroom, so why is this reaction today? While she replies, the situation was worsened by the fact that one of the girls asked why she defended Yoan's when everyone had already heard that she closed her in the composition. They say that Taekwondo knew about her envy, but did not imagine that she was capable. She says that she did not spread rumors, but she doubt it because she always had a desire to do something unpleasant. The tension between Namu and Yo-un increases until the latter loses control and strikes the opponent. Namu has to answer the same, letting down the slap. The teacher asks both of them to go to the consultant's office to record their explanations. He will then decide whether they are punished or expelled from the sports club. Now, while in the curator's office to make a statement, they began to argue again about the details that need to be entered. Unfortunately, it is very upsetting Yono Yu, because it is really innocent of what it is accused of. After the pause, we ask why she did so, and adds that if she was silent, he also needs to attend workouts. He is still not satisfied with her answer and notes that when he completes the workout, the night will come. It seems strange to her because he did not pay attention to the time before. She insists that he calls her, no matter what goes away. Left W. He replies that he came because he wanted to see her. She notes that it would be easier to justify if he attended school every day. He says he didn't sleep again all night. To change the topic, she asks if she remembers their meeting on the bus in W. She cannot allow it to happen, so she returns to him and tells that she has been punished at school. She quarreled with a classmate, and now she has to clean the toilet with him. He cannot believe that she was punished only for an altercation, but she admits with anxiety that the conflict has grown into physical confrontation. He immediately grabs her, checking whether she was injured. She assures him that everything is fine with her, and emphasizes that she was the first to hit the girl. He explains what happened, and he praises the girl, noting that she probably wanted to keep calm so as not to hurt. However, Natsuo still suspects. She shares her anxiety because this guy seems to be her brother. Your brother? He is amazed. She explains that she saw them together and worried. She suddenly asks if he knows her brother, what a freshman with blonde hair. He replied that he had spread them last time because his brother, apparently, lost his mind and stuck with them, so he pulled it out of there. As a loving sister, she asked that in the event of a repetition, he helped her brother. The guy agreed but turned away. Thinking, she sighed lightly that it was a misunderstanding but was worried that he did not want to show her face. She watches him like he's sleepy through his eyes. Then he remembers that he spoke of late falling asleep. It does not look at the eyes until they meet the eyes that leads to the kiss. During the kiss, his eyes are widely revealed from surprise. He immediately begins to apologize, assuring that he had done it in a dream. She continues to apologize and wipe her face. She tries to believe that her first kiss happened to a guy who claims that everything happened unconsciously. He asks her not to yell. She admits in her soul that it seems completely when they kissed again. The next day, the newly created lovers come to school together while other students are engaged in jogging. Taggle notes that it sees it for the second time how sports teams are engaged in jogging in the morning. This is due to the fact that he came to school at such an early time. He makes all these efforts to see someone special. As a beginner in a relationship, he is trying to keep the distance, apologizing. It is not necessary to wait for it next time, because she wakes up through habit and does not know the hour. He agrees. Mon Gi-son is trying to find out if they are familiar with each other. He tries to explain to her that Chagil is the same guy he was talking about. However, she interrupts, saying that it was a misunderstanding and her brother has already confirmed. What's wrong with you lately? He asks, looking at her confusedly. When she clarifies what he means, he replies that she constantly says not to worry. She does not see this problem, but he insists that it is important and asks what she will do if Shao. He explains that he could not speak on the phone and apologizes for his behavior. Although he insists that he can tell what he wanted, he interrupts her and says that he did so only because she has not spent time with him lately, so they should stop talking about it. She tries to explain that she does not want to spend time with him, but that he is too busy. Squeezing crutches, she notes that he has changed the topic and thinks of why so. Talking, she pulls him closer and whispers that it seems to her that something happens between her and Chagyo. By sharing this news, she asks him not to disclose it, because of the injury, she is already on the verge of a nervous breakdown because she cannot train, so rumors of relationships would be superfluous now. It shocks him, because earlier she said that such things were not interested in her. She replies that life is unpredictable, and that they are not officially together. While she talks to him, suddenly gets a message from Chagiolya. This caused her slight shudder. She laughed and noted that it was interesting. Before entering inside, she returned and said she would not press on him if he was difficult to tell at once. Let it do when ready. She can wait. And so that he does not understand her wrong, it does not mean that she is indifferent. In fact, she did not draw the line between them, just did not notice the one installed by Moon-gi-sun. And even if she noticed, she would have little, because she was in love with her ears with Oh-oh. In the next scene, the Nazo and Yo Un-soo arrive at the school toilet to serve the sentence, and there is everything in a depressing state. Yo Un-soo advises her to sit, because it is obvious that she will not be able to remove in this condition. The teacher probably suspected that it would happen. The assertion insists that she cannot leave his girlfriend with the cleaning, so she brought a waterproof cover to protect the leg. But Yo Un-soo refuses to help. She says she has conscience. When cleaning, Natsuo asks whether she closed her in the pantry and denies it. She adds that her girlfriend Yoani also accused her, but Yo Un-soo replies that even loved ones do not believe it. In addition, she said that Eshe. In the end, it grew into unclear obsession. She searched for articles about a new rival for hours, but from the envy, she overwhelmed her, read them, almost closing her eyes. This did not reduce the desire to view her photo again and again. The more she learned, the greater the complex of inferiority, which was impossible to escape. They have already encountered each other in the same weight category several times. It was quite clear, because it did not leave a deep impression, just being a taekwondist who had to make efforts. The UNSU began to hate Neto for suddenly trying to control it. After talking to Nejo, she realized that she was not only sharp, but more talented than expected. Why is such a perfect personality as Nejo work so hard? And why do the coach and director constantly give her advice when seemed to teach her nothing? She carried these thoughts for 2 years, and by the third grade of high school, they became her enemies. She regrets that she did not stop her on the way home that ill-fated day. It may not have been in the accident that led to a leg injury. She sought the Nazio to break her anger on her, because her pride did not allow her first to apologize. She was looking for a reason to express regret. But despite her desires, she never blamed Nazio. Yohang-soo again emphasizes that it was not she closed her in a cell. Although it was locked in the collar, she was so lacking that she was even happy that she was able to annoy her. She confesses that she always sought to be like a weapon. On the same day, Natsuo and Cha-hil talked when she told him about her conversation with Yo-usu. Upon learning that she was not closing her in her, she now wondered if it was indeed a coincidence. She regrets a little that gave this situation of such. They talk for a while, but suddenly she turns away, despite his request to look at him again. It gets up and departs. Reason? She wants to calm down a little and cool her red with a strong feeling. To her surprise, he approaches her with a soft step, carefully lifts it and puts it on a chair, calling an alarm. She confesses that she has always been, and adds that he is worried about him, her brother and parents. Typically touching her face, he says it would be great if she could release her anxiety, but she continues to list new reasons for excitement. The conversation is ongoing, and it suddenly confesses that she likes. What a coincidence. After all, he also feels the same. She offers to kiss, but he reminds that they have already done it in the morning. However, she still insists on a kiss. In the end, he is exposed and easily kisses her in both cheeks, but does not have time to react as she firmly grabs him by her ears and begins to kiss. During their kiss, he notes that instead of kissing her, he wants to approach her even more. They create the perfect couple, right? All the problems around her seem quite insignificant. At this romantic moment, she does not suspect that her phone is constantly ringing from the calls of Moon Ji-sun. Instead, Ji-sun solves his own crises and hopes that his girlfriend will accept it. The teacher addresses the question to her sister because she thinks she may know who hurt her brother. Suddenly, Natsuo leans closer to his brother and asks if Woojin did it with him. Natsuo wants to find out who is guilty of his brother, but Seo is no. The man asks to take care of Woojin because he is still immature and weak. As the one who has already fallen, he should help the fishing line. But Chajiol reminds that he was told not to communicate with Woojin, but adds that he can supervise him because he wants to become a detective. Chago warns him to stop acting as if they are in a relationship, and adds that the fastening is not who he can be with. I hope this guy will not be detrimental to our heroine. He gives some tips and takes his electronic cigarette before leaving. Meanwhile, at school, he went to the teacher's office. It turned out that her brother was teased by Woojin and his friends, so the teacher invited her with concern. The assassination breaks into the office, shouting the name of his brother and asking what he did, which caused the teacher's care. He tries to hide his face, but she pulls his hood, opening the cut. The teacher begins to explain that Namyao has recently come to classes with injuries, and she cannot but worry about him. Everyone is left in ignorance who could hurt him. She believes that Gio creates a noise and decides to intervene. We are in no hurry to tell her the cause of her actions, but that does not mean that she does not understand what is happening. Is this because of your brother? She asks without risico. She remembers the fateful day when she sat from Gio near the lake and confessed to him in feelings. But to decide to say Ayeon-soo that Chago is her boyfriend, she lacks the strength. Fortunately, Gio intervenes, claiming that they are just familiar. Wee Oh confesses that he does not know how to act with us, Seo. Someone is constantly insulting her, and she cannot just stand aside. However, it warns her from hasty decisions. Does Natsuo really want to be excluded from Taekwondo's team for aggressive behavior? Is she ready to jeopardize her career for her brother? Eo, so is prompting her to think about her own interests. However, the girl is concerned about the idea. What if something serious happens to her brother? Namsayo later? The constant beating of the brother is very worried. In addition, he continues to communicate with those who abuse him. She cannot follow the CO all day without stopping. If something happens, may be late. Natsuo is not refrained from the excitement aloud. Her anxiety for her brother is huge, and Jobuns tries to reassure her. At this point, suddenly appears, hearing part of the conversation, asks, "What is too late for?" The unexpected appearance of Chaz is frightening. It stumbles, but Giola picks it up. He asks her about crutches, and here Giol suddenly remembers her brother reminded not to forget them when she hurriedly ran out of the hospital. However, Gio insists that everything is fine, because it feels better. But Yoa Soo intervenes in the conversation and asks about a strange guy who has just interrupted them. Unfortunately, we doubt the Gio and hesitance to answer her. However, Giol reassures her, advising not to worry. When she asks if he is angry, Giol is suddenly replies, they say, it's true that they do not meet. He suggests that he does not remember the moment they confess to each other and the feeling shock. She cannot understand whether he is upset, because she has just hid their relationship to Yuns. Having realized the situation, he decides to complete the conversation with Yuns and go to the roof to meet Jial. She refuses to propose Juns to go with her. We see Chagyol on the roof as he recalls recent events. With a smile on his face, he jokes, "If I knew what happened, I would live better and less piercing." As soon as Natsuo gets on the roof, she notices Go. At the same time, he apologizes, asks for forgiveness for not informing Yosu about their relationship. Natsi quickly resists, resting his head on a pillow when his mother enters the room, and asks if Gio, where Seo and Gio, knows that he does not know where he is. The mother notices her depressed condition and asks what has happened. Do you hurt your... However, Gio promises to help her cope with her brother's tears, but it does not bring any relief to the assault. It is completely broken. Her idea of Chagiola is fundamentally different from what he really is. Natsuo sits at home and cries on his bed. Now she realized that Chagiol was only playing with her. He probably does not perceive it as a romantic object at all. Her hopes for a bad guy with a good heart were dispelled, because it seems that Chagiol is not at all. While the desire releases her anger on a pillow, she hears steps in the house. This is the mother of Namji and Namkao. She is looking for both. After an unsuccessful attempt to find Seo in his room, she goes to the Gio room. But Woojin is fully confident in his words. He continues to throw provocations towards Gyoal until he suddenly stands and grabs him for his hair. Further, Woojin, says Gyoal, looking closely at him. Speak. I listen. He repeats, holding Woojin firm. It is clear that she does not definitely share the opinion of the assault on herself. The mother reassures her daughter, assuring that everything will be fine. Time treats all wounds, the mother adds. However, as we can see, we do not fully understand what is being said. Her first broken heart through a gill is not easy to survive. How can, after mutual confession of branches, just say that there is nothing between them? It's not a simple thing to forget. We see Chajiol go out to the open roof, where several guys hang out. He attracts attention, loudly opening the door with a foot blow. His actions influence the boys so much that they are frightened, thinking that Woojin's father came to them to check. In fact, the presence of Chagiel was a surprise, because no one believed that he would appear. It seems that Namseo, too, is unconscious on the floor because of the use of prohibited substances. I was not going to come, but someone was annoying me constantly, Chagyol says, approaching a stunned fishing line. Woojin was stunned by his words because, according to his version, Chagyol ignored all his calls. In the presence of Nijso, Woojin asks whether it is for the sake of Chayol. Not having time to answer, he was asked if Namchko asked Joal to check Nazo. Other boys are impressed with the words of Woojin. Why would Joal do it in general, right? However, Woojin is fully confident in his words. He cannot restrain laughter when he reveals Joal, who knows about his relationship with Namchko. Other guys can't believe it. Meanwhile, many guys gathered on the open roof, where Chagyo picked up Namseo. And they discuss, of course, Pak Woojin. It seems that Woojin has become the object of mockery. Guol put him well recently, so it is not surprising that he no longer apay. Get on the bad side to Chagyo? Yes, this is definitely a serious matter. It was a bad idea. And Chagyo shows Woojin why. Gel intentionally tries to provoke him, isn't he? Need to react, right? Asks Woojin Gel. He is only restrained because of the presence of other guys. Well, Woojin asks. Suddenly, Gel pulls his head to the bottom. But at the last moment, he stops through a call. Woojin considers himself happy, because if not a call, if something happened to him, Chugul's call sounds urgent. However, when he goes, he asks the other two guys to help him place cultural tests. The conscious decision is kept from behind. Despite the initial surprise, the boys obey his instructions. They watch him bearing sleeping Namseo on his shoulders, hurriedly leaving room. Meanwhile, the wounded Vojun stares at Guil in the departure, not believing in his luck. In the morning, we see Natsio that sleeps in our bed. She seems to see something in her sleep. Gio, looking out the window, said that it has passed 3 days after Cha-gil broke her heart. She does not want to dream of happiness with him if the reality is so far from these dreams. She does not want her dreams to give her in vain hopes. Meanwhile, but as soon as she decides to leave, Gio accidentally misses her handbag. Yo Unis notices it and tries to call it, but we do not hear us, so we have to come closer to lift the bag. Meanwhile, Gio is absorbed by a deep thought. After breaking from of course, all the guys now know that the beating of Woojin happened through the West. Many consider it to be Chagjol's girlfriend. Meanwhile, while the boys are passionate about these rumors, suddenly someone behind breaks their attention with an unexpected replica. Speaking, someone says, "Do you know who it is?" At school, we see how Yo Unis looks out of the window. She suddenly notices Nadjo that goes by and calls her, "Navigo, where are you going?" But he replies that he goes to rehab. Yo Unis is wondering if she will go home. However, Namagio assures that he will still come to school. Because of it, the weapon looks so exhausted. But she denies, claiming that there is nothing between her and Chagio except for foreignness. If the case is not concerned, she has nothing to discuss with Ujin. Despite this, the guy is convinced of Hai. One thing is clear. Gio can still not break away from Chaga. She just doesn't believe it. She suffered from George. However, there are problems on the horizon. It is time to avoid them at the last moment. Just here was your leg. We see that the culprit is actually Pa Ujin. What does he try to do? Meanwhile, some guys on the roof are watching Rujin and Gio, which are below. They can't believe what is happening. Everyone is trying to stay away from the dirty game that Rujin was intended. Meanwhile, Nazi, trying to dodge the beat, causes the pain of a wounded leg. Rujin is surprised by her agility. You could even avoid it, right? Nazao is stunned by unexpected aggression from Woojin. It is obvious that the attempt was deliberate and filled with illness. Does he really want to hurt her? Gio does not understand why Woojin is angry with her, although it was he who hurt her to his younger brother Namzao, but she does not feel fear for him. She asks this question, but ignores her words. How noisy. Continue, exclaims Woojin, hitting the bat. Natsuo barely has time to dodge. Ah, it annoys me, Woojin shouts from indignation through misses. I told you to stand still. However, Natsuo is clearly unable to do so. Ujin is dangerously swinging with a battle. It should continue to dig. This is a mad situation in which we were Muzio. Does Ujin really have a tooth on her? Natsi thinks to escape to a crowded place. However, it seems that Ujin is already aware of her intentions. Instead of escaping, Ujin tries to persuade Natsi to hit him. Honestly, this thought flashed into Gio, but she remembers the words of Yo War. Is it worth beat Ujin, risking your career in Taekwondo? Are you annoyed? Ujin suddenly asks. Not having time to answer, he heard, and you were worth choosing a guy closer. The confused assignee asks whom Ujin speaks of. He explains what Chaga is in mind. Behind the back of Nazio, Chagio expresses the confidence of Junes, lightly pushing the girl in his direction. When Jusa brings her up, Natsuo tries to find a common language with her girlfriend with Taekwondo. However, Junes does not give her to Tella. It is the one who broke her heart only a few days ago. But why is he here? We find out the answer when he quickly fights with Pak Woo-jan. While the battle is unfolding, the Geo begins to suffer significant damage from the Woojin Bitka. She can't get rid of the feeling that it was already experiencing Jaja. The worst thing is that the battle takes away life. The battle is mainly in favor of Woojin, as it causes serious shocks of Chai. We can no longer tolerate it and decide to intervene. It puts a powerful blow on the head of Woojin, which is why it crashes into the wall. Fear suddenly absorbs Nazi when it turns out that it accidentally knocks him down, led to loss of consciousness. Did Woojin hurt very much? With a gloomy expression, Chagyol approaches his face, which seemed to be knocked down from his feet, bringing him to fainting. Why did you intervene? Explains Gile, turning to an concerned Najio. She again asks whether Vojin was really injured. Initially, Chagyol is silent, but it replies to her insistence. Fortunately, he is only fainting. Excuse me, says Chagyol, hugging Natsio. He assures her that she takes care of everything on her own, but she wants her to leave the area immediately. However, Chagyol does not want. Ready for it. Suddenly, Chagyol recedes from her, looking carefully in her eyes. Gio, listen. You have never been to this place before. Chagyol says. Any attempt to argue suddenly stops when Gio says, take it. We note that there is a Johan. The leg affected. Fortunately, the doctor believes that it is because of the load during the exercise. Imagine how he is surprised to learn the true cause. It is not critical for Natsio. Otherwise, I would have to operate. Gio apologizes for disobedience, where the doctor reproaches her for insufficient attention to the patient. He decides to find out everything in person, so he goes to Chagyol home. She manages to receive his address by contacting the archives of the school under the pretext that lent things from him. However, it does not appear at home. Where are you? Incredibly, as it allowed the pressure so surpassing herself that she abused her abilities in Taekwondo. Even if Woojin is terrible, it does not give her the right to harm him because of her skills. Even worse that they are now accused of a guy she likes. And she is not so bad. He expresses his opinion and leaves everything on his own. The conversation with the Unsu's Wenasu after contact with Wudge shows that the Unsu should convince her not to talk about the incident for both of them. The Unsu does not want to ruin its career in Taekwondo. However, it is clear that Gio is worried about her. Probably her actions can be considered as a manifestation of cowardice. She says that is why Chagyol left her out, because she was bursting with garbage. Obviously, it really sinks into a depressive state. What is the garbage? Asks Chagyol, suddenly appearing from where? He should stop doing so. With each time it is, in his smile it is felt that, despite his closeness, he does not allow anyone. Why are you so bad about yourself? He asks, looking into her eyes. The sudden appearance of Chagulus caused surprise in the West. Sitting nearby, Gio cannot but ask why he is here. However, Gio told her that Ujin also got to the same clinic. At the same time, he takes from her a tin. Concerned, we are asking about, we see that Joe hopes that he has not suffered a serious injury because of her. After several failures, in joking, Chago told her that Woojin said nothing about her involvement in his injury, perhaps because of embarrassment. He does not want anyone to find out that he was in such a state after one blow from the West. His reputation can be significantly affected. Unfortunately, this means that the assault is left without radical consequences. Its reputation does not have any negative impact after this incident. We see how Gio is pierced by repentance. Sorry, says Natsi, unable to look Chagil in the eyes. But Chagil is responsible. What to apologize for? For Gio, if it were not for the intervention of Natsi, he would be quite likely to be in the hospital instead. Natsio asks about the forehead that has suffered in a quarrel with Patwujin, but as soon as Chago tries to touch the wound, Natsio stops him. They fade for a moment, staring at each other's eyes. Natsio advises Go not to touch his wounds. After all, accidental pressure on the forehead can only worsen the condition. But for Gyo's, it is only a slight scratch. It is much more upset by the fact that he will no longer be able to insert the earring into his eyebrows. He believes that she would look great with her, and hints that Amjo thinks so. I said that? Annoyedly replies the Natsio. Chagyo with a smile adds, I know that even if you didn't say that. However, it is evident that the light-hearted tone of Chagyo is very worrying of Natsi. He seems to behave so much so that she does not know anything. How will school punish you? Asks Chagyo directly. He calmly replies that he is most likely to be deducted. This shocking recognition becomes even more difficult when Jial is easy to explain the situation. Natsi feels embarrassed and ashamed because of the development of events. What are you doing? Jial asks. Why does Chaga donate her future to help her? Why is he trying so much to protect her when she did not even ask for it? Jial does not understand her sudden reaction, but the Nashio explains. Then why are you protecting me so much? Chaga is surprised. His answer is striking. How can nothing be between us? He believes that there are mutual feelings between them. In addition, he will not forget how Natsuo saved him. He emphasizes that if the GEO did not intervene, then perhaps he would have been in the hospital in worse than Yujing. The assassin is not amenable to it. It will not allow the sweet words to influence it this time. Jeo says he will not confess to the quarrel between her and Woojin. Doesn't Woojin want this? Moreover, she claims that her silence can lead to his exclusion from school. It seems to be winding up, thinking that it is destroying his life. However, Chial clearly does not share this thought, because for him, exception is not the end of the world. Nasco knows that the only close person for Gal is his grandmother. How is his life not destroyed? Surprisingly, Chagyal admits that he may be worse. Despite the fact that he insists that he will not allow him to cause her pity or guilt, Hyal says it is normal. Live as you live, he replies. Give you that you saw nothing. This is a Gal's request to Nazo, with the condition that she will never use Taekwondo's skills to attack someone again. Initially, Theo believes that he tries to ridicule her until he repeats what he said again. Chagyo asks her to continue. Otherwise, my life would be destroyed in vain, he says, smiling and gently holding his finger on her face. After Chagyo calls for Natsi not to waste his sacrifice, he rises to go, taking with him a bottle of drink received from Go's. I will consider it a gift from you, Chagyol says before you go. Zabaidio is experiencing another bitter moment. She wants their paths not to intersect if everything should end so. It may not have to sacrifice his future. She may not have experienced such pain, and Chagyol would not be disappointed with her weakness. It is noticeable that shortly after the day, the location of Chagyol suddenly becomes unknown. Taekwondo is engaged in Taekwondo, but is she really an athlete? It can be seen more often on television shows and social networks, so the more real title for her is the title of celebrities. There is only a conversation about it, such as B. Unfortunately, when she tries to call Chagyol, the news is not comforting. The announcement in the empty corridor reports that there is no such number. The weapon cannot contact Chagyol, and the worst part? She guesses what happened the day Jiol took the blame for her quarrel with Rujan. She recalls that significant day of Chagyol's war. How could she know that his grandmother died that day? When Gio leaves Chagyol's house, it is seen that heavy rain is pouring. During a walk in the rain, Natsuo meets a man in front of the building. Natsuo recalls this man. She has already met him opposite with Chagyol. He clarifies that he is not a stranger. His name is a guy, and he is a police officer. Did you seek Chagyol? He asked suddenly. Natsi replies that yes, and heard that he had been transferred. Emotions overwhelm her. Why did Xiaogal say nothing? She could at least say goodbye. But in fact, she is not sure what she would have done if she had a chance. Uncle, I can't find Chagyo nowhere, he says, collapsing in tears in front of Gunho. Indeed, it is clear that Go is upset because of the loss of the guy she likes without being able to fight. On the TV screen, a woman with a hair like hair attracts all the attention. Nasha notes that she has not heard it for the first time. However, she has no choice because she recently left the big sport. Each centennial from advertising and television is important for her. She was even offered to become a trainer from Taekwondo. Yo-In's does not look like her friend, Taekwondo stars, but G.O. explains that she has just been from the morning shooting. This is already called employment, Yo-In so notes. Are you an athlete or already a real celebrity? At this point, a familiar, almost ghost voice turns to Gio. Have you not changed, Gio? I told you no longer beat people, right? It is the voice of a man she dreamed of seeing the whole 10 years. Returning, Gio sees the Chagyol that looks at her far. She still dreams of Chagyo. She still misses him. It is obvious. How can she forget it? Without Chago, he would doubt that he would be as successful as it is right now. By ordering another portion of food and drink, Nasco and Yo-Yu Su are discussing other topics, such as the fact that Moon-gu Sung has now become a MMA fighter. However, during the conversation, he begins to feel sad and loneliness. She soon decides to say goodbye to Yo-Yu Su. Shu advises her to take a taxi, but Gio refuses. I did not play sports today, so I will walk. She says goodbye to her friend. When Nazivio goes home, she begins to torment a separate headache. Did she accidentally drink too much or just tired? Suddenly, Gio hears a loud cry that stops her. Nazi wants to make sure that this is not a game of imagination. When screams begin, her suspicions are confirmed. Who are you? Let me go, says frightened. Take your hands. Why are you so persistent? Although Natsuo is not a little because of drinking, she will not leave a person who calls for help. As expected, it is a classic robbery, theft of a handbag. The thief is very persistent, pulls the bag, and the poor man tries not to let go. Hands away from her, exclaims Natsuo. Fortunately, it has time before the thief can steal a bag. Seeing the opportunity to be caught, the robber tries to escape. Make sure that everything is fine with the woman, Natsuo goes after the thief. However, it seemed that her slight intoxication prevented from keeping up with events. Despite this, due to perseverance and determination, Gio has managed to catch up with him and drive him into a dead end. Left without choice, the thief decides to fight us, Gio. However, it is evident that Gio does not want to fight him at all, remembering how last time Chazoal saved her from trouble. But when the thief continues to annoy her, Gio decides to no longer restrain. With an instant attack, she hit her hand, cutting off her hand. But Taekwondo's star does not stop there. It continues to target several weaknesses. In the end, it completely immobilizes the thief, depriving him of the ability to move. Successful confrontation for Taekwondo craftsman. Now she has to decide whether to take the offender herself, because she really wants to go to bed today. How could he get back into her life so suddenly? Where was he all these years? The next day, we see Nado, who dines from the UNHUHU, a police officer who knows Chagul. It turns out that after Jewel disappeared 10 years ago, Gio and this officer became, he goes, without even saying goodbye to Nazi. Even with the arrival of the police, all thoughts are only about Chagyol, as he asks Gio's question to make sure that she did not seem. But there is no doubt, because he was the first to turn to her. Do you say that he was the first to call you? Vonho asked, still showing skepticism. Yes, but he was with someone dangerous. She remembers how nervous he was when he ordered her cream cake that day. It is fun that at that moment their friendship began to blossom. But during a casual conversation, Nazi suddenly decides to throw a bomb. I met Chagul. The words were so stunned by Gavunho that he almost served with a cake. Suddenly, she gets a call. From whom? Gio? At the other end of the tube, there is a familiar voice with notes of worry. It is Moon-gai's son, who gets a slight reprimand from us, Gio, for using this nickname. She reminds him that he does not love when even Natsuo feels sympathy for him, because she also lost weight for her career in Taekwondo. But their conversation is interrupted by the owner of the diner, who approaches their table, is surprised to see the wind. Who would have thought that this W informs Gai-mun, which will not be delayed for a long time if he really plans to invite her for dinner. It does not interfere with her old friend, because he only wants to have a snack and return home quickly. However, she asks for curiosity if she is busy or has any plans. Gio cannot say the Gai-mun, who is engaged in a chape tracking, so he replies that he just waits. Fortunately, Gai-mun is not persistent and sends her the address of the institution. When Gio arrived, he could not eat anything despite my efforts. Moongi-san orders fried guts, a dish that Gio usually loves. However, this time we have no appetite at all, because she is all thinking about a probable meeting with Chaga. She does not want to smell of fried guts when she sees it. However, Gio notices changes in the Moongi-san figure. You look bigger than before, she notes, looking carefully. Ki-sung does not deny, confessing that even the idea of weight loss is already tired. He still remembers that he should lose about 10 pounds. This is one of the victims that Moon-gi-sung is constantly forced to go for his career. Looking back behind the guard, Chagyol sees that he is none other than the Gio. Quickly hiding a dossier on a fanho, he prepares for the meeting. In this short moment, Gio has already realized. Before her, the same Chagyol, which she knew 10 years. The owner of the dining room apologizes and departs from their table. But before that, she asks to leave the autograph. What a brazen old woman. Unfortunately, it is known that he was a professional volleyball player named Bae Chan-ho. Gio does not like talking about him, and it is clear that their time is over. Moreover, Moon-gai Dream is even more excited. learning about him than Gio himself, because he had made her volleyball player. Meanwhile, one of his employees quickly enters the Chagiel office to hand him the files he was looking for. It turns out that it is a dossier with personal information about Baj Chan-ho, the same volleyball player who is a former boy Gio. Why does Go follow him? In the cafe, Gio was surprised by a sudden explosion of songs from Mungi. Is it all because of Bae Chan-ho, who are so concerned about it? It is obvious to Natsi that she does not accept any actions of Bae Chan-ho. It turns out that Nesgio began to meet with Bae Chan-ho just because he reminded her of Chila. It is clear that Gil was only passionate about itself, isn't it? This may have caused the shortness of their relationship. I like you. What about you? Nasta caught the moment when Bae Chan-ho said it to another girl. Can you imagine this guy used the same words that Gio once said? Seeing this with his own eyes, Gio immediately breaks the relationship with him. However, everything that is related to her short novels, even the last words of Bae-chan, reminds Nastyo of Chagio. After finishing the meal, Nasta and Mungi-sen leave the institution. Jijo's childhood friend apologizes to her for the mention of Bae-chan-ho, but Jiju says it's not scary. She even feels a little guilty, maybe not good enough for him. However, Mungi-sun unexpectedly reminds Nastyo of the promise she made as a child. Mungi-sun unexpectedly reminds, "You said, if we do not have a partner, let's get married with each other." Nast, indignant with his absurdity, strongly pushes him in the leg. Then Mungi-sun adds that he is old and lonely. He wishes good night and safe road home. What do his words mean? Maybe he hints at true feelings for her? Nast? Okio is convinced that they did not cross the border. She met with Piko Chan-ho, whom she did not really love. However, it may change everything if her boyfriend is a longtime friend. She accurately imagines the following development. She and Munga can become a couple if everything lasts. However, this is only possible if it does not meet Chagyol that day. On the way home, Taekwondo's former star cannot but think about Gizen's words. She believes that her actions prompted him to see something more. It may be a hope that they could become more than just friends. She is currently planning to avoid meetings with him alone. Gio can't get rid of a feeling of guilt for everything that has happened. It seems to her that she was too focused on herself all this time. By chance, on the way home, Gio copes on two suspicious men. It turns out that they also recognized her. "You look familiar," one of them says. Meanwhile, Cha-gil sleeps in his office when he suddenly hears a knock on the door. This is one of the men who have just faced with us. "Boss, I apologize what I worry, but here someone is very famous looking for you," the security guard reports. Gile orders the guard not to let anyone into the office. However, the guard adds that the one who wants to see him is very famous. The article tells rumors about the relationship with the Onu with Bae Chan-ho, accompanied by their shared photos. This is not the only news. The scandal with contractual matches, which was involved in the UNSA before, is also mentioned. The Gios Afe, he will find himself in trouble. Chagiol warned the famous athlete. It was obvious for Natsi that he was talking about it, worrying about her safety. Therefore, she insists that she immediately leaves the place. But surprisingly, Natsia replies unexpectedly, she wants their meetings to remain secret. At first, Togol is difficult to refuse her in mind, but even so, he wants her to go. However, in an instant impulse, Gio comes up with that she needs to borrow money from Chagel. This is one of the services of his firm. After a long reflection, Joel still decides to reject her idea by drawing it to the door, but still gives a little money. The disappointed Nazi, returning, goes into the shower immediately. She does not leave it that Chagio may have forgotten about her. At the same time, hopelessly in love, she hopes that he misses a little. Meanwhile, in a white car, we see Junes with someone else. She does not seem to be here at all. "Is it sure that we must meet exactly to communicate?" asks Junes. The interlocutor replies to her, "If someone says he wants to meet you, it is because they really want to talk in person, Sister Yuns. This person is none other than being Chanho. But why does he meet with Yo Juns? At home, in your own apartment, Namjio falls asleep and finds itself in a strange dream, where Chagyo appears looking extremely depressed. He holds white daisies in his hands, and deep sadness is reflected on his face. Blood spots on his suit hint at wounds. The dream ends when Chagyo hugs Gio, reassuring her with the words, It's nothing special. Natsuo wakes up, puzzled with her sleep. Ironically, that she dreams of Chagyo again after she saw him the day before. However, the vision struck her, forcing her to worry about Chag. Gio cannot but wonder about the current lifestyle of Chaga. Although the officer of the GU Wunha said that he is working in a distribution company, Gyola is more reminiscent of a credit institution for her. She recalls how Shagul rejected her proposal for the loan, saying that he usually does not. Then why is he there? He feels that there is some connection between all these facts she knows. It seems that Uncle Gu Unho lied to her. She no longer knows what to think. In addition, he is guilty of the present life of Chagyol. If she had not poured her anger on Woojin 10 years ago, she may not have to save her, and he would not be excluded because of her. At the Chagyol's house, a man sweaty and breathes hard, moving in bed. Finally, he wakes up with a fright, looking at his bedroom. "Again," says the garden through a sigh, glancing the room. Want to calm down. He constantly thinks of the Weewol. Meanwhile, the famous athlete Gio is painted in the salon. Suddenly, two women come in vividly by discussing something from the phone. One of them, as we go to Natsuo, asks, "Can you ask you a question?" Gio is wondering what is being said. The woman shows Natsuo news on her phone and remains absolutely silent. Flashback opens an interesting story. As Namjo accidentally intervened in a situation when the thief stole a bag of a woman. But the woman was journalist Jo Seon. She is very grateful for her heroic act, standing in front of the police department. However, she still apologizes for hiding the truth from her old girlfriend. However, it seems that Najio is worried about something else. She is wondering if everything is fine in Yousu after the news that appeared. It is a scandal through which Yunsu resigned because it was accused of trying to adjust the match. Yunsu answers Natsi that everything is fine with her and throws the phone before Geoder has time to say something. However, Natsuo cannot but worry about Yunsu. She is worried about how their relationship will change after Yunsu dating Bae Chan-ho. And the scandal with the adjustment of the match returned. Gio recalls the period of heyday of their quarries in Taekwondo. When it was rumored that Yuns was trying to victory, she, of course, assured her that she would never have done so. On the eve of the confrontation, they will agree on a couple. The vicious should treat the opponent with lunch. In the course of the game, Zhao receives a slight advantage over Juns. Gio heads the point table when the judge announces the end of the second round. However, this does not mean that she feels confident. In fact, she fears that Yuns is able to win her. However, the match is not completed. Yuns is suddenly removed due to injury. Gio is very indignant with this and later asks about the reasons. Juns explains that the coach advised to star if the injury is too serious to continue. Yuns is not concerned with his decision to withdraw from the competition, just as he does not worry about defeat. It is she who reminds us of their little couple. Because of this, she will now have to treat Gio dinner. However, shortly after that match, rumors of a scandal with contractual games, which is involved in Johan, began to spread. This case has not been resolved. Yuns decides to complete his career because of an injury. The uncertainty around this case still leaves the assault. For Juns, this is a clear topic, so it cannot just start a conversation. However, Gio decides to trust her. At this point, Gio unexpectedly receives a message from a journalist named Cho Si. At the same time, Jo Si-eun sits in the back seat of the car with nothing else than Bae Chan-ho, who praises her for her good work. The journalist only feels immediately to Bae Chan-ho, who is suspected of long-lasting attachment to us. However, it seems that she has nothing left but to obey all the requirements of volleyball players. What did Bae Chan-ho's think? It is none other than the Eugene Park. We and journalist Jo Si-on leave the cafe after a pleasant time together. Before dispersing, Jo Si-on reminds Gio of the weather forecast, asking if she took an umbrella because it is possible to rain. Unfortunate. Without hesitation, the journalist tells the journalist about Yovun SU and rumors about the relationship with Pin Ho. She also recalls how the media again inflame her long-standing scandal. Yoseon is clearly embarrassed by the words of Nazgo. Why does she react so much? Maybe she is involved in rumors about Younsu. Meanwhile, anxiety prevails in the Chazkila's office. He asks one of the present, which day is today? He replies that Friday. Cha-gil, having gained impatience, looks out the window with anxiety, wondering why he did not contact him. Tired of a futile expectation, he decides to leave the office and look for it. However, before you go, someone comes to his visit. She remembers another dream that she had a fight through her, and was expelled from school. If everything is repeated, does this mean that Chagyo is really in danger? It is concerned. Namuo orders to stop the bus. Meanwhile, in the sea, at the same time a heavy rain begins. Gio cannot but feel pity. Couldn't Rain wait at least before her return home? How is it possible? However, suddenly another thought appears. She recalls her morning dream about the rain. Even before she saw Chagyo with bloody spots on her clothes, she instantly engulfed the horror of her husband, whom she loves insanely. He jokes a little about Chagall, asking if he really doesn't mind that the former boyfriend of his ex-girl is also involved in this case. It becomes the last drop for Chagall, and he immediately asks to go. However, before Uzjin has time to leave the Sao, moreover, it seems that Uzjin knows about the participation of Baj Chan-ho in this agreement. Although the rain squeezes it through, Gio rotates, noticing the one he loves. A smile shines on her face, and despite the cold, she calls him. We are Gio sounded by Chagiola under the veil of drops, but does not receive an answer. She is surprised. In his office, Chagel leaves the office to the car, overcoming rainy streams. Unfortunately annoys him, but the thoughts about the search for Natsiao are constantly returning. He doubts. Is she still on the street in the rain? The winding streets of the area near the office only worsen the mood of Gilles. However, for some reason, it seems to him that Nazio is waiting in the rain. Without finding a place, he eventually comes out of the car and rushes to look. All. He loses his mind, isn't he? Or maybe no. To his surprise, Chagyal finds a pre-rain in the same place where they met after 10 years. On his back, you can see a strange tattoo that causes such fear that it loses the gift of language. Jiwol does not want to discuss this by telling her that she will go to the other side of the room so that she can dress. We can barely move our hands. This is very pleasing to George. There are no one in the office except for two. Gale suddenly asks to remove his shirt and wear it, which causes it to indecisive and embarrass. She understood his intentions incorrectly, but does not complain. However, when Gale tries to hand over her shirt, she pulls him by the hand to see his bare shoulders. Noticing that there is no danger, Chagyal says she can come out. However, Go's are not moving, because she cries. Gio cannot get rid of the idea that it was because of her that Chagyal was in such a dangerous situation. If Chagyal was not kicked out it seems that Chagyal workers are already returning. Out of the office, their voices can be heard. The doors open sharply. Men come in and find Yoli sitting at a table without a shirt. However, we are not visible anywhere. Men are surprised by the presence of John, because he should be in the head office today. In addition, why is he without a shirt? Despite this, they try to invite him to drink. But here they notice a women's shirt and a handbag on the floor. Incredibly embarrassed, they flee from the room, misunderstanding the situation. However, this plays in favor of Chagyol. All this time, he was hiding under his table, so she has nothing to worry about. However, Gio believes that care is still appropriate. In the end, he was expelled from school for trying to help her, not all the other things he did for her. Gio confessed to us that she really thought, as if she just heard she talking about her as if she were his little daughter, and Go was really continuing. Tears flow through its face with streams. You have not even been able to leave your contact, Gio says. Last time you just gave me money and kicked me. She really sounds like a little baby, true? A real sweet girl. Chagall does not give her a convincing answer. However, she suddenly asks if he hates looking at her face. It is obvious that the guilt, with the exception of Gil, does not give her rest. She even believes that he can hate her for it. However, the branch stops the assault when he tries to hide his face from him. Gio shouts, "Chag ill," but we are instantly interrupting it. She does not want him to call it because she understands that if the branch continues to turn to her, she will no longer be able to let him go. Everyone agrees with her request, asks her if they can talk later because he has other cases. The embarrassed and amazed, we are asking whether it means that he does not want to talk to her right now. He assures that he was not at all, before kissing the assault directly into the lips. This was incredibly surprised by the star athlete. After a passionate kiss, Gela proposes to continue the conversation because she knows that she has accumulated many questions for him. Do you answer me? asks in surprise Natsuo. Hyal says he will answer if he can, and therefore Gio no longer holds back his curiosity. She asks him about the nature of the work and the company he works for, remembering the information he learned from the officer of the UNUHU. She asks whether his company really sponsors athletes and his tattoos. Chael surprisingly corresponds to honestly, although his answers remain vague. It turns out that he does not even know the company, but is only the manager and business partner of the real owner. In addition, he confesses that he has this tattoo for a long time. This made him mention the note with the contacts, which he almost accidentally gave instead of a business card. Sincerely confessing, Chazgul believed that Nazio immediately called when he saw the room. However, in rage, Natsuo beats him on a naked. Namile remembers money. These are the same bills that she calculated for coffee with the journalist Cho Si-eun. She thanked Chagyol because it really saved her from an unpleasant situation. However, it made Chagyol silent again. He admits that his contact information is recorded on these money. "I wrote my number," Chagyol said. He explains the surprised assault that he did not really write it in advance to give her, but simply had with him at that moment. The moment she suggested to borrow money from his company. With such a volume, it becomes clear that the guy soon will hear them in a telephone conversation. This tricky Chaejel knows what he does, isn't he? This is nowhere to go, because Moonung Sung eventually asks whether with someone Nago. And Gio, without. I agree to it. Gio fits to take a call. This is revealed by Moonha sleep at the other end of the line. While Gio is talking on the phone with Mooney's son, Jial suddenly appears behind her and hugs her so firmly that she becomes surprised. Mungai Dream asks why she suddenly fell silent, and Jial whispers quietly in her ear, "You said that you will be fast." Song continues the conversation by the phone, concerned with the incomprehensible silence by Najuo, although the connection is still active. In the Cha-Gal office, it becomes apparent that it is his hands on the right. Najio is still communicating with the phone, but cannot speak because of the deep kiss of Cha-Gal. In the end, she breaks off to answer Mungusun, asking if they can talk the next day. However, Chaejel interrupts her again, forcing him to kiss. What did he think? However, even without a clear reason, Chagol advises her not to store her number in the phone. Instead, he prefers it to try to remember it. Obviously, Natsuo is upset and concerned that Jiol does not want it to keep his number. Is his lifestyle real? Before telling him that it is time to return home, she even playfully refuses to propose to raise her. When did it become so witty? Even a Chuol this time cannot find a good counteraction to her sharp mind. Despite the previous jokes of Nizhuo, she still accepts Chagyol's proposal to bring her. She advises him to close the window to avoid problems because of inadequate behavior, because Chagyol practically goes without a shirt, only in a jacket. Jiol promises to follow her advice and says goodbye when she comes out. However, at this point, Gio recalls that he still wears a shirt, but Chagyo does not consider it a problem. He closes the car door and asks if she remembers his phone number. Gioyo considers it superfluous because she can simply keep his number. However, the tired Gisun takes the phone, notifying that he just returns home. It turns out that he wanted to ask the background if she would be free tomorrow. He says that the former basketball player, and now the actor, Ki-on Shin celebrates his birthday AD. Nazo hands him a credit card to pay for a taxi home. However, Seo rejoices, thinking that he can spend money at his discretion. Gio immediately reassures him, explaining that he will receive notifications about each transaction. She also warns, if she learns that he is associated with illegal DDoDo, he will contact the police. Although Seo insists on his innocence, he brazenly fastened before his departure, which irritates his star sister. Some geodotics will really be able to declare it to the police if it is actually related to DDoDo. Rejecting these reflections, she decides to call Mungai to clarify any misunderstanding. She used to be with Chagale. This is the Kion Shin himself. To Kion Shin and Moon Gusun exchange courtesy, after which Gusun represents us by Gio, for a former basketball player who became an actor. Contrary to the previous words of Gio, she and Kion Shin are welcome with Enti. From the obvious Gio, there is clearly no great inspiration to be at this party. She considers her a loud and another overwhelming show from Kyonshin, as if he was a megazeer. Even Gu-soon admits that he did not expect it. Geo is still complaining about the Kion ladder when someone sounds Muna Gu-sun. Yes. They rise to the top floor, take their places, and watch others enjoy their birthday celebration. Why don't you swim in the pool? It looks fun, Jeo Moon-gu-sun suggests, but the man replies that he just wants to relax. At this point, another person tea. On the way, Jeo constantly looks at Mungi's song with suspicion. What's wrong? Asks Mungi's song, smiling noticeably. Jeo, a little embarrassed, confesses that she did not expect such a simple answer from him. It seems to be too cautious about Gisung for no reason. Noticing that Jeo cannot answer, she says she wants to go with her. However, Jeo quickly refuses, answering that she needs a toilet. In addition, he emphasizes, he talks to one of the former classmates, Kogshin. Stay here, I'll be right soon, says Ji. Where do you go? Asked her Sunday. His departure brings us to the Gyo relief. She does not know if she could withstand his stay in the room longer. However, when she looks at the journalist, Gyo sees Jo Si-eun raises a thrown stick for smoking he left a tire. Gyo asks if Siyu was, however, with a more attentive look. She notes that it is not really a cleaner, but a journalist, Josie Uni. Why is she dressed as a cleaner? Is it her work? Unfortunately, it's not at all. Kumgeo quickly guesses that Josie Yun is here to gather information for one of his articles. Realizing that her personality is revealed, Josie Yun appeals to Nazio to help hide her real name. At this time, Kyonshin rises by the escalator, talking on the phone. Is Josei Yun here? When the toilet passes by Kyonshin, journalist Josie Yun hides with Natsi to avoid his eyes. Kyonshin still talks with a phone with a woman who calls Little. Fortunately, it stops for a while in the room next to the toilet. Before the voice in the phone asks him to go down, Gio is typing on the phone and showing him, suspecting that they were invited to a drug party. Meanwhile, Chagyol instructs one of his people to monitor Pachin as he watches the car himself. The employee reports that Uzjin almost did not leave the H. At that moment, he suddenly remembers that she had left Moon-gi-sung alone with a classmate Ki-join. She is in a hurry to leave Jojin, promising to contact later to find Moon-gi-sung. On the second floor, Cheongshin's classmate tries to persuade Moon-gi-sung to drink. Although he first refused, the girl still manages to persuade Gi-sung to take a sip. However, before the UFC fighter has time to take a sip, Gio appears at the last moment and grabs a glass from his hands. Surprised Moon-gi-sun asks Ji what happened, but she insists that they immediately leave this place. In fact, she wants them to go home away from here. Unable to explain Manhwa of Sun's cause of his insistence, so Gio and Jisen arrived in Gio's apartment. However, the news that Gio has handed Moon-gi-sun is still stunning it. He even refuses to bring something to drink something. Instead, Moon-gi-sun seeks to find out all the details that the journalist Gio, Namgio, is clearly annoyed by seeing Gisen. It looks like someone is jealous. Natsio remained silent because Moon-gi-sun could not confess to why she left the table. How to tell her what she wants to try to be with another, not pursue her. The same will make her terrible in his eyes, right? Gisen again asks Gio about journalist J. It puts us with G and Mon-ji Dream in opposite positions. Can it cause a crack in their friendship? Gio is upset that the situation can adversely affect their relationship. It is at this moment that the knock on the door is heard. The knock does know. He confesses to Natsi that he was actually scared when he saw her with a Gensing. This man can't hide his jealousy, isn't he? He does not believe in the situation in which he found herself. After 10 years of expectations and aspirations, finally, Gios. While they stand in Gio's apartment, after a brief surprise from his appearance, he asks how he learned about her apartments. Can you imagine what the Gio? He claims that he knocked on each door on the floor until he found it. Is he crazy? Does he not understand that he can be arrested? Gio asks why Gio appeared so unexpectedly. After all, before his arrival, she discussed a serious business with the Song of Mooney. She even kicked him through the stage he arranged. However, Chae-gyo states that this is exactly what he wants. The man does not really have a good thought about Chagyol. After his departure, Chagyol receives a call from Natsi and agrees to meet her on the bridge. Chagyol was surprised to see a Gio, because the day before she had a high fever. Shamelessly deny. Chagall advises to rest. It leads it to the bedroom, offering first to go inside and change clothes. After a while, Gio announces Chagul that she has already changed her clothes. Entering her bedroom, she sees the assault that lies on the bed, looking even more feverish than before. Chagul draws attention to the severe sweating of the assault, which indicates the severity of the condition. It is even difficult to move or talk to her now. Gio is so exhausted that it begins to fall asleep. She says Chagil to go home, but he insists to stay near and watch her sleep. Although she did not want it, her eyes were gradually closed and she plunged into sleep. The next scene is similar to the memory of her past. In the yard noon, and young Assault goes into the restaurant. She came here only for the sake of meeting with Che Gul. The teenager tells her she was late, looking a little upset. However, Chio replies that the delay occurred through workouts with Taekwondo. Tom Gio feels strange, noticing earrings in the ears. She asks the chewing whether he stopped wearing them. However, Jial does not understand her words, believing that she accepted him for someone else. Her perception of the muzzle was based on his older form. Suddenly, she begins to doubt whether she remembers memories from the past. What about a strange dream sees Nazi? Is it really possible to call a dream? Chagyol and the Mujio leave the restaurant and go the street. During this time, Natsuo is constantly looking at Chagyol, who is a little confused by the guy. "Why are you so invisible to me, look?" Chagyol asks. Recalling that he behaves strange, she cannot understand why Chagyol looks so young again. It seems to confuse him with his older eye. Chagyol asks if everything is fine in Gio. However, she becomes not good. Suddenly, he feels dizziness that the memories are mixed. What is happening to her? The worried Chagyol causes a taxi to take her home. While he does it, Gio examines the tied wound on his forehead. She asks Vyujin Park, because he knows that he is involved in the injury of Chagyol. However, the answer given by Gio is very different from what she knows. Instead of Chagyola expelled, Vyujin Park himself was kicked out. She also remembers that Namkayo got out of the coma, though it never happened. What happens to Gio? It seems that she is no longer able to distinguish her dreams from reality. Is the result of her fever? Is there another reason? Despite the fact that Chagyol calls it, Gio cannot come together with thoughts. She really doesn't understand what is happening around. And this does not end there. Suddenly, she sees a dream in which Chagyol offers her a hand and heart. Just after an interview at the Olympics, in her dream, a Heil for some reason becomes a police officer. She so understands what is happening. In another dream, she is a police officer who is investigating crime, haunts the offender. Next to her on the ground lies a seriously injured man. When she turns to look at the wounded, Gio suddenly wakes up sharply. She notes that Chaguyal is still resting next to her bed, which means he spent all night. He even seems to bring her medicine and something else. Moist towel to reduce temperature. Chago decides to take care of us by Gio independently, even helps her to attach a wet towel, having received her consent. However, the thoughts of Gio are far away. She continues to think about dreams with Chag. The dream of a young Chagio seems too realistic to us Gio, as if she had ever worked. However, another dream where Chagio is a police officer has a completely different atmosphere. It seems unrealistic, as if it had never been in this situation before. In the end, she feels that her consciousness is stuck between dreams and reality. Chagio notices her fear and asks if it is because of distrust of him, but the reason is quite different. Shogi continues to apply a wet towel to her skin and he wants to share his sleep, but cannot formulate the words coherently. Nevertheless, Chagyol reassures her, assuring that there are no reasons for excitement. It's just a dream. Fortunately, this is enough to calm her nerves. That evening, Chagyol meets with an elderly man who turns out to be a senator, and even gives him a gift before he goes to the car. The journalist reminds us of Jiho be careful and avoiding communicating with Kyeon Shin or his environment. However, she says something else. She asks about Jiho's friend who brought her to a party. But why is Moon-gu-soon so much interested in? But they head home. Natsuo recalls the event from this morning, his telephone conversation with journalist Jo Chi-un. She confesses that she sometimes feels as if exploding. He smiles. Only sometimes? It's a good sign. At least you're here. She replies indifferently. And how now? Near Gyeogul does not gamble interest, saying that this place seems strangely family. Even when she and Chagyol came home, Geo cannot throw it out of the head while standing on the balcony. It feels confused with everything, including Chagyol. She sincerely seeks to know all about the man in whom is in love. This leads them both to sincere communication. Wiaz and Chagyo enjoy a wonderful moment on his balcony. Isn't that romantic? However, before the events get out of control, Chagyo asks to stop. At first, she wants to talk to him. Despite its initial indecision, Chagyo confesses Geo that he likes it. And what of that? Minus answers Jeo. But in fact, it is part of her plan to get rid of his attention and run to his apartment. Initially, the salted Geo tries to justify himself, but suddenly realizes that Geo is already rushing into his apartment. Hold on, Geo, Chagyo exclaims, trying to catch up. Finally, he finds a former athlete with taekwondo, who is already sitting on his bed. In response, he smiles at him. Without holding back more of her feelings, Chago rushes to her, pressing it to the bed. Their lips are found in a gentle kiss, and Chagyo offers Goo to start meeting him. He even asks Geos what she wants to know about him to demonstrate her devotion. Joel asks Natsi what she will do if he disappears again. See you later. At first, Joel was without words, but later found the answer. She noted that she thought about their relationship for 10 years. Now, looking back, it causes some funny. However, Geo states that only 10 years have passed. She groans, tries to rise, but first coats. Something presses on her. Morning light penetrates inside. It's not her home. Without condemnation, but it is really strange. A man rides a car that costs more than some houses but lives here. Maybe he spent all his budget on the car and ignored everything else? Who really has time to go at this time? There are many questions. Her look falls on the calendar. It is strange that it is really used because who holds paper calendars now? Scenery or kind of chaos filled with almost annual notes. Then something attracts attention. An accident. Arson, her eyebrows are frozen. What is it? The rain is pouring, turning the streets into dark sliding trails. Chago steps forward, his police form stuck to the body, and his gaze frozen on the body spread on the ground. Nast. It fastens from awakening. The heart is crazy. The room fills the weak hum. Washing machine. He reaches out his hand, but the bed is empty. Panic covers it. As soon as he seizes his phone, he sees her through the glass door of the balcony. She cozy with a jar of ice cream, muttering something in the phone. Sighing a sigh of sigh, it fits and seizes a spoon without hesitation. She almost does not respond, quite immersed in what excites her. He raises his eyebrows, hinting that rice for breakfast would serve as a better choice. It shrugs, saying it is delicious and just lay in the refrigerator. Something in advertising attracted her attention. And he also eats their ice? It is convenient to be a boss and still secretly taste at home. The interviewer's door knocks. Yoon-soo stands outside. It is located in an interview, specifying that has completed a sports career for no specific reason. The interviewer raises the eyebrows, marking the unusual location of the selected location. Yoon, she is the only one talks. Jeol is silent. She looks patiently waiting. He leans with a smile and whispers that still counts. She asks him to keep it with her and warns that she does not ask again. He tilts his head, interested in asking why she looks so tired. Perhaps regrets? She says they are more than it can count, but he has one, so she feels a little better. Should say 1.5. What is the difference? He raises his eyebrows. What is 0.5? Did she meet half a man? Upper or lower half? She replies that he was he. She thought they were in a relationship, but he said it wasn't. Suddenly it explodes with laughter. She swirls her eyes. He laughs at her? He continues to smile, shaking his head in disbelief. Even if he is just 0.5, he still exists in her past. The SU cuts off, threatening to throw the phone unless it goes to the substance. Baya Chun-ho Men mentions the amazing story about Geo in the Olympiad. Yoon-soo's facial expression becomes serious when Baya Chun-ho's hints at her probable involvement in. He confessed that he wanted to contact after a long pause, and at first their conversation was uncertain. In the memory of Yun's, he receives a call from Bayashins, and they exchange wit. He jokes that she is always busy, adding that she has not changed at all. She could not explain why she agreed. The UNSU explains that a special player despises unfair training methods, and she did not want her to be considered a fraud. She confesses that she did not seek to attract attention or interfere with the player. However, Junsa playfully hides the player's name, believing that it does not matter, although the interviewer insists. Junsa says that the player's condition was worsened before the important duel, and he received a seductive proposal, guaranteeing that the player does not lose. The interviewer leans closer, feeling intrigue, and asks what the proposal was. INS discusses the world of sports competitions, where athletes are immediately presented to the top of glory after the medals received. She mentions profitable sponsorship agreements that accompany success. The memory shows a conversation in which a man frankly says Insa that she is not able to win and advises to retreat. Tsui is back now, opening the shocking truth. She was offered to deliberately lose the match with a special player. The interviewer carefully asks whether Jusa agreed to this proposal. Yun's is a little delayed with the answer, correcting and explaining that she still disagreed. The outbreak of memories shows how the man orders her to retreat, but she did not obey. However, Sue specifies that Bei-chan did not say it directly. She explains that they used her vulnerability, forcing her to accept the proposal. The Unsu cunningly played a role, as if she cared about this to gather evidence. That is why Bei-chan consti. Tsuyak explains that the interviewer asks her to reveal the ambiguous comment of Bei-chan. In any case, the game is no longer the same. Jun's opens that she knew about manipulations with the player and points to a company that fabricated the story to influence the result of the game. Even without this order, the result would be the same, since the player received a similar proposal from the connected organization. Jun's mentions how Bei-chan remembered an interesting offer from someone, perhaps hinting at this company. The interviewer requires more detailed information, asking what Bei-chan's offer concerned. Sue without hesitation answers, contract matches. Woojin tries to hug the Gila, but he removes, asking to stop stupidity and sit down. Woojin asks if the branch can be a little more friendly, given their relationship. The branch replies that expresses its own opinion. Woojin says he called for he. She quickly rejects this thought so as not to seem stupid. At this point, she hears someone trying to open her door. She frozen, suspecting that he is Chagyol. But when he opened the door, he sees his mother. It was definitely not included in her play, but the search is oversaturated with advertising. It is determined to find something significant. Among this noise, she encounters the martial arts competitions, which awakens her dream with her. Gio feels the alarm how accurately the details coincide. Another article attracts her attention, and she thinks whether she was destined to become an underground police. But Gio, embarrassed. Do the underground cops are in shape, not ordinary clothing? Gio doubts whether she can, the world champion, join the police. She recalls that dreams are only dreams, not precise predictions. However, the feeling that Chagyola's records and her dreams are connected does not leave her. Gio embraces curiosity, and it is set to reveal the truth. Her consciousness is full of opportunities and is encouraged to explore this mysterious path. She thinks whether they share the same dream with Chagyol, reflecting whether fate brings them together. Her mother, jumping suddenly, awkwardly apologizes and leaves the place. As soon as she goes, the girl requires explanations, asking why she had not seen his business card before. It diminishes the value of the card, noting that it is not so important. Hello by Gio's mother with a polite bow, he stretched her business card, which caused her surprise. She was shocked by a card, but even more when he stated that she was meeting her daughter. He adds that this change has united Chagyol and her, which, in his opinion, is positive. She seizes more about Chagyol's past and why they say nothing. The uncle hesitates, but recognizes that the company with which Chagyol was associated has a dubio. He smiles, saying that this is not a reason for pride. She asks for her hugs. Click. He trembles with surprise, and she is so sweet. She jokingly agrees, asking if he is really serious. His face becomes more gentle when she hugs him. Two men are suitable for it. One warmth is welcome and asks if she came to see the manager. She offers them a treat, noting that she brought him with Uncle Won-ho. The man smiles gratefully. Another jokingly asks whether she wants to become his daughter-in-law, although his son is still in elementary school. His friend looks at him embarrassed. They are interested in whether the manager is busy. Gio replies that he is already going. Both men nod and go away. Ohiko stands in front of the office, thinking about the words of Chagiel. Thinking about whether her uncle advised her to turn to him directly, she is distracted as soon as Uncle Vanho approached, inviting her inside. She notes the intense atmosphere, and he asks if she really feels stress. She hands over coffee and cookies, pointing to dip the cookies in coffee. She jokes with his reaction. He asks if she is really in love with Chag. She explains that she wanted to discuss something related to Chagio, in particular, why he did not tell her about Chagio's location. Her uncle confesses that he was asked to keep it secret. She remembers the allegedly lowering Chagio in the post, and her uncle explains that his new position is actually safer than the previous one. She remembers the strange behavior of her uncle, thinking if he said something in the presence of Chago. Her thoughts interrupt the phone call. It is a journalist who causes her feelings of exhaustion because the relationship with her is always diff. She assures him that she is not angry because of concealment. He asks if her calm is related to the situation, to which she hints at what is possible. He thinks of what his problem is and whether he cut off the contact, especially given that he knew Chagilia earlier than it. Improved, she strongly climbs on her feet, stating that she learns the truth on her own and leaves the room. She remembers how she did not want to be involved in this confusion, returning to the day when Chaga was expelled from school. When you think that Chaga is criticized, it causes indignation. She reproaches her stupidity, realizing that she should just ask Chagio directly. An unexpected moment. Gio accidentally enters the shower room of the athlete and finds him without a shirt. She wants to get out quickly, but he easy to take her hand and seems like Chagioil. Gio looks at him, realizing that he is not just a guy. She provides a book so that she can turn the pages. The theme is Stunned By, an organization related to illegal flexions of matches and drugs. And who is the ambassador with public relations of this group? Yunsu. The feasible is surprised to open the eyes. What does Yunsu have to do to this mess? The reporter explains that Jun Su is engaged in gathering evidence to justify his name. Gio, always ready for new challenges, does not lose opportunity and decides to help. The journalist is interested in how to join the case. It looks prepared for its passion, nodding when they start discussing the plan. Gio is raging from ideas, ready to plunge into the investigation. The journalist clearly counted on her energy, and they are beginning to discuss the plan. Porter's advice leads Gio to a party where she hopes to know more information. Communicating with the guests, she notices Ujin Park and narrows her eyes, thinking that a place for his lattice, not among the elite. She is so busy that she does not have time to check her camera, and as long as it realizes, she sits next to her ex-boyfriend Bei Chan, who now meets Junsu. He smiles mockingly, hinting that she only came for him. Gio tries to be casual, claiming that she is only interested in his achievements. However, Bei Chan feels that she is hiding something. She asks if she regrets about their gap. He has also wondered if his relationship is concerned with Junsu. She denies any residual feelings, but Bei Chan continues to clarify the truth. She wondered why she followed him at all. As soon as the situation became uncomfortable, Chagiol appeared and put his hand on Bei Chan's shoulder. Bei Chan immediately changed and fell silent, recognizing the authority of Giola. She looked at Bei Chan, after which she turned to Giola, noting her unusual style and asking her whether someone helped her create it. Zhao starts the day with a stroke, literally awakening Sun's swift-footed method. Preparing for the day, she gets a message from Nazo, who jokingly mentions her stay in Sonang and directly asks if they meet. Later, Jiao meets an extremely beautiful stranger who is much higher than her, which rarely happens. She immediately notices his amazing aroma, as if he had just left a soapy bath, which causes instant suspicions. Their paths intersect at Taekwondo Club, which ignites her curiosity. He looks like a real athlete that makes him even more mysterious. The moods boil and the facial expression becomes careful. Gal requires Woojin to find a source of leakage. His voice is filled with a threat. Woojin is uncertainly shining, not knowing how to accomplish this task on his own, but the smile shows that, in the end, it will make Woojina angrily leave the room and go down. Gio quietly informs that Woojin has gone and asks to release her. Instead, Geo insists on what she does. Noticing her camera, he asks why she is. She tries to avoid the answer, saying that it is just interesting. Joel is not convinced, so he returns the question, asking why she is connected with Woojin and director. Jeo does not remain in debt and accuses it of avoiding the topic. Irritated, she pushes him to the wall. She protests, asking not to do it. He ignores her, saying time to go. Jeo requires her camera to turn her, but he waves her in front of her eyes, teasing. He wants to check if information is useful, turns the interrogation, asking who pushed her to it and who stands in the shade. Jeo fades. His words impress her as if. She finds herself in a dead end, without any excuse or opportunity to escape. The eyes of the Riol narrows when it tensely monitors the Geo. She realizes that her determination has weakened, but before she has reacted, he suddenly kisses her. Retreating, he sighs. Geo remains stationary. Her mind is overloaded. Is this really goodbye? She wants him to stop, saying something. But he goes, leaving her stunned. Geo meets a reporter who immediately asks whether she failed. Geo confesses that she has lost her camera, and the reporter's eyebrows rise up, feeling that something more lies behind. Geo hesitates, not knowing how to explain the confusing events that have happened. The reporter is increasingly frowning because of uncertainty in Geo. After the incident, Geo did not contact Chogol and does not know what happened to the camera. Despite uncertainty, she nurtures hope that it will not turn into a disaster for her. The reporter proposes to open the operation to return the camera, but Geo immediately rejects the idea as too risky. The reporter carefully studies the expression of Geo, asking if Chogol warned it. Geo nods, confirms his participation. Geo remembers the past with Jill. As always clinging to him, while he kept a distance, watching her as a wonder. She sighs, realizing that she has lost not only the camera, but also the opportunity to reveal the secrets of the branch. The journalist expresses his distrust of Giole, warning that he may not be on their side. She apologizes for the lost evidence, but Geo agrees that the risk is becoming more dangerous. Geo reminds himself of separating emotions from the situation, disappointed that Giole has slipped again, seems to control her choice. The journalist remains skeptical, feeling that something more is hidden in Giole. She expresses the desire to meet him. Geo lifts his eyebrows in surprise, thinking why the journalist did not try to do so before. The journalist changes the topic, emphasizing the difficulties in tracking key figures and moving drugs without evidence from cameras. However, she is determined to get into the office of the CEO of the Park Lujan as soon as they have a clot. The eyes are wide open when the journalist proposes to sneak into the office of the CEO of the Park Lujan. The porter shrugs his shoulders, underestimating the risk, and Geo cannot withstand laughter from the absurdity of the situation. Meanwhile, Starmer celebrates a mysterious victory on his channel, stating that he has broken a new record. The audience is surprised, but he is delighted. After completing the broadcast, he unexpectedly receives an early call from an excited friend. He, in despair because of the defeat of MUN Gisung in an important match, complains of broken plans and requires compensation. Sturmer leaves the impression of the indifferent, rubbing the temple, trying to reassure a friend. After all, having lost patience, he puts the phone, yawning through the morning call. Elsewhere, the Heil breaks into the office, and his anger is felt in the air. The engine is straining, feeling the approach of problems. Suddenly, Gale's fist kicks Woojin's face. He shakes back, stunned by an unexpected blow. Gale looks at him focused. His anger is ready to flash. Woojin rubs the jaw, shudders with pain, trying to calm down. He seems to understand the cause of the explosion, mentioning the reporters who will rush around. That is why he was returned. This may only apply to him, not her. This will require. But suddenly she calls his name, hands a handkerchief, and apologizes for the alarm. He looks at her and thinks, maybe try again? After all, she is the same as always. Geo is convinced that Ion-Soo knows more than shows. It combines the threads between the company that extends rumors about the contractual matches of Junsu and the case that reporter Joe is engaged in. Yoon-soo is silent, but it says more than words, so Geo requires explanations. Yoon-soo looks genuinely surprised, but Geo is sure that silence was deliberate. Gio feels the difficulty of understanding that it may have contributed to the fact that the situation has come out of control. She feels guilty of criticizing Jun's without knowing all the circumstances. Jun's is diminished by Gio's concern, but Gio thinks whether her friendship has been saved from the consequences of Jun's mistakes. Feeling the emotional excitement of Gio, Jun's looks more gently at the situation and her facial expression is softened. But Gual meets with his uncle in a secret place, and his paranoia is obvious when he asks if no one has followed the Guale. Gual reassures him, assuring that he has taken all measures to avoid possible observation. The conversation goes to Gio. His uncle warns that she asks about him. There is an annoyance when All asks why Uncle keeps their meetings secret. Uncle advises him to reassure Gio if possible. However, Gio seems to have come to terms with it, and murmuring that it is almost over. Meanwhile, Josie Owen communicates on the phone, having fun discussing with someone his new home when a bicycle suddenly appears. At this point, the writer is swollen by bat, aiming at her head. The person immediately falls to the ground. Anyone who does not know about a terrible event at the other end of the telephone line only asks for a strange noise that is heard without fear. Jun's asks Gio to explain that she was referring to the word all is well. Gio warns that the situation is becoming more dangerous. Yoons understands the risk, but it is a question of redemption, not guilt. She regrets that her reputation has suffered and never achieved justice. She knocks on his thought, insisting that she will now take everything on herself. Yoons is surprised, but Gio explains that it has been drawn into this confusing situation for years. He has a plan to contact Bae Chan-ho, a key figure to reveal a secret, remaining unnoticed. Yoons is skeptical, but Gio is unwavering because it seeks to prove its value and earn Jun's trust. With a decisive look, Gio thanks Jun's for tea, warns to be careful, and goes. Jun's looks after her, thinking what he pushes Gio to find revenge. At that time, Gio reflects on the complex character of Jun's, recognizing that its sarcastic tone often causes misunderstanding. However, despite this, Yoon's always takes everything on itself, demonstrating true power. Oro notes the readiness of Yoon's, if necessary, to take on the role of a villain. Observing her, Oro notes how her behavior has changed over time, from resignation to acceptance. Guy's dreams interrupts the call of reporter Joe, but the phone is lifted by an unfamiliar man. The confusion changes anxiety when Gio requires to find out what Joe hospital. The height of the man is confirmed by the worst fears of Gio. Joe in Comey. The determination of Gio is stronger, and it promises to no longer invent justifications for its own ignorance. Meanwhile, Woojin talks about a new job in her calls. He expresses his disappointment about Chagil, believing that working with him is senseless. Woojin thinks of leaving the country, but decides to stay as long as he wins his curiosity. The news of the situation with the reporter Joe is spreading lightly, and Chagiol is the main suspect. Gio visits his home on the verge of nervous tension, hoping that he is not at home. When she comes in, her gaze falls on a dry sink, and she thinks of whether he has been at home lately. It reminds her of the time when he was injured. Then she doubted Yola, so his silence only exacerbated her embarrassment. She thinks if she would change something if they had previously dealt with misunderstanding. Gio wants to believe that this is another false accusation, but she lacks evidence. She remembers their last conversation, regretting that she did not ask the questions that were so excited. The fear of destroying everything kept it. And now it is torn between doubts and the desire to believe in his innocence. The garden comes in and causes Gio by sudden, driving from it for an invasion of the former apartment. She does not pay attention to his sarcasm, explaining that she knew he will not go if she knows she is inside. He notices hidden shoes and praises her observance and meticulousness. He asks if she is looking for a camera, and she replies that they need to talk, revealing that the plans have changed. Hyel is skeptical, but his tone becomes more serious when it warns that her partners should retreat. Gel reports that the reporter was attacked, and his reaction is alarming. She was horrified, thinking if he was involved. He just shrugged, saying that he would not be surprised. Gio begged him to stop telling riddles, but he is indifferent because he is convinced that these people called it. She insists that this reporter is of great importance to her. He raises his eyebrows, asking her intentions. Hyel warns Gio that if it continues to behave inadvertently, his help will be limited. Finally, Gio raises the question that frightened her, and the Hyel smiles. Threats act only on those who have something to lose. For a moment, it seems to be scared, but his face quickly returns his usual calm expression. Jeol says Jeol that she cannot ignore crimes around, especially when they are innocent due to her actions. Jeola's impersonality annoys her, and she states that he cannot stand on his side if he does not explain what is happening. He reassures her, saying that there is nothing to worry about. He waits out of this, emphasizing that she is always on his side, just as he is on her side. Geosneps is outraged by his mystery. She apologizes, but he orders her to leave, warning against ill-advised actions. Left alone, she is aware of the painful truth. She was so frightened by the opportunity to lose him that she had never seen him genuine. Meanwhile, Jel is watching the calendar, trying to remember the events of July. He cheems, not knowing what to do next. Heel is immersed in reflection when he calls Nizo, thinking that he needs help. He feels the image, but then remembers Gisuna starting a story. There are rumors about his unsuccessful match. Gio does not pay attention to it, but he is interested in whether the Gisun is intentionally lost. Gio asks Niseo to explain her anxiety about the Hensung Moon, and she mentions possible contract matches. She warns that the person involved is cautious and advises him to find evidence if he intends to go to court. Nemo quickly reduces the value of rumors, noting that he just thought it could concern it. Gio decides to come. Taking up with Mongi-sun, we do not overload her. She tries to call him, but his phone is off, making her think about his inaccessibility. It begins to notice a certain pattern. These rumors cause her suspicions. The lack of official refutation increases its doubts, and it begins to notice the relationship between contractual matches, sponsors, and possible consequences. UFC fighters such as Moon Ji-Ju Singh. She understands that this is unlikely in view of its origin and determination. She begins to look for documents, find a connection with Park Woo-jin, and identify the relationship between business Woo-jina and Muno Ji-sun's past. This coincidence is too clear to ignore it. Gio communicates with Yo Eun-soo, apologizing for an unexpected question and asks if Woo-jin can. He participated in her scandal with contract matches. Eun-soo denies any straight line. The Eun-soo denies any direct contact with Woo-jin, but mentions the name Global Deal Company. Gio's eyes expand when she recalls the business card of the same company that she received from Chagyol. All parts of the puzzle begin to form as a whole, revealing the network of connections between Chagyol, Park Woo-jin, and scandals with contractual games. Reporter Joe apologies that he cannot move further into the hospital, referring to her introverted nature. Gio reassures her, telling about the rejection of the noisy crowds. In space, Joe introduces Gio with an experienced reporter, Woo Woozung Minim, who welcomes her. The Ming Landent will go to business right away, explains the plan of penetration into the office of Gina Park. He invites them to review the materials provided during the discussion. Details. The imperfect protection of the office building and the future crossing creates a small interval of opportunities. Chongmin notes a weak place, emergency stairs that remain open until the evening. Then the guard closes the door and puts the guards on the main entrance. Fortunately, CCTV cameras do not work on the stairs, creating a potentially blind area. Chongmin proposes to distract the security, taking over this part of the plan. G.O. wondering how to get out and what you need to take from the Park Woo-jin office. It is hesitant without knowing whether the physical, digital file, or different, or hidden. Gio notes uncertainty, but still decides to act. She reflects on her responsibilities not only to herself, but also to others, including the Giole. She is not going to abandon him. Chonmin notices her mindfulness and specifies whether they prevent her. She reassures him and he apologizes for not getting Joe from being involved. Joe appreciates his care and mentions strange relationships between people in her life. Chonmin nods approvingly. Joe asks Chonmin to take her to the hospital, that she has another investigation into thought, and the expression of Chonmin's face becomes interested. Chugul comes to the restaurant asking if there is a representative in place. The man replies to the man that he has not returned yet, but soon it will be. However, the restaurant is closed earlier due to lack of staff. Chugul brings his eyebrows, not inconvenience. He decides to have a snack elsewhere, joking that he also needs to survive. Before going, he asks to inform the representative that he will return. He said in a calm and gathered voice, "For a day or two." Jio and Junming are watching the guard of the security guard, which Junmin finally discovered after a few days of persistent searches. He plans to develop a new action plan, distracting maneuver while the Jio is cut inside. With several fast movements, we will see. Walking a hammer, Young-ming accidentally damages the car. He calls the benefactor to make an appointment with the owner of the car for apology and correct the situation. While they are waiting, Young-ming warns Geo be careful. Geo noted that the early departure of the guard can cause suspicion. He also warned about it. With a slight nod, she quietly slipped inside until Junmin monitored the situation. Noticing that the office was empty, Geo lightfully sighed and sent Junmin message to confirm the situation. She is already inside the office. Now she faces a difficult task, to find what she is looking for. The table was surprisingly neat, which made her doubt whether people were really working here. She quickly spread the shelves, but the documents seemed to her foreign inscriptions. She decides to experience good luck on a computer, but authorization on the internet is a mystery. Without hacking skills, she decides to copy as many files as possible, and at this point the echo of the steps began to spread. Her heart began to fight madly. She is instantly hidden under the table. Her thoughts flooded options. She did not have time to decide how suddenly someone was calling her named, and she hit her head against the table. Chagall stands above her, looking stunned. Geo asks how he found it, but it seems that he is amazed, at least. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. It should be a little more difficult to achieve. Jel is not convinced of her reservations. The dispute is exacerbated. Jel insists that she had no choice, and he is indignant that she did not listen to his warnings. Quietly, she tells her mission to find a park's documents in Jin. Gil proposes to start with the safe, noting that it can be the best place and recommends picking up everything it can. Gil is surprised by his unexpected willingness to help. He notices the paper in her hand and is wondering that it is the words she made with the help of numbers associated with the pacifier. Jiao is not amazed by asking. The effectiveness of her plan was in question until Jiao tried a different combination of numbers. She recognized one of the rooms as the old phone number of Pak Woo-jin. Her eyes shook when she entered him, and the safe opened with a pleasant click. The echoes from the outside ran cold along their spine. Pak Woo-jin breaks into his office, noticeably annoyed, and requires to know where everyone went. Gal shrugs, taking responsibility. People Woojina. Woojin muttered himself under his nose. Woojin muttered, which would deal with him later, and offered to go for dinner. Gal, justified, said he needed make a few calls. Jin lifts eyebrows. Feels something wrong. He cautiously sniffs the air. Jin asks what is happening, and Jal tries to wave. Just as Gin goes, Jal runs to the window and helps Geo climb. She confesses that she has almost lost hope for escape. Jal dramatically grabs his chest, and she asks if he is not injured, but he waves his hand without giving it value. She thanks him, noting that he believes in his reliability. They will have to discuss more and more later. When she is about to go, Yole warns again. Don't trust anyone. Suddenly, she returns in a panic, noting that the door is closed. Geo. He leads it to the roof, opening her their way of escape, a nearby building. Ji asks Jiol if there is a safe way to do that. Move to a neighboring building? He admits that there is no such path. She understands that he offers her jumping from the roof to the other two buildings. With a fixed expression of the face, Gal replies, the cold runs from her answer. She tells him not to adjust himself to the negative, but he insists that she certainly needs to succeed. His seriousness surprised her. This makes the risk a little more justified. Geo gives out a promise from Gela that he will tell everything if she successfully crosses the obstacle. Gathering with the spirit, gives him gloves and jumps bravely. Relief. Hela watches her departure, thinking about what secrets can be kept. Disclosure. But his reflections were cut off when Woojin Park appeared, laughing that he had missed an uninvited guest. The GL retains calm and proposes to catch a little rat. Woojin, Gently, he calls his subordinate Zhang Pao and orders him to track the masked guest, a girl with a tail. As soon as she felt the safety, steps were heard somewhere nearby. One man noticed her and approached her, having another task. There is no choice, so it is decisive. Silently prays so that the leg does not let down and thinks, Hiela had not to make this promise. Now she was in a dangerous position. Mujin insists that it is not his fault, claiming that Giel decided to jump. Gio hurriedly runs to Giola. The heart is pounding from anxiety. She can't believe it happens again. Giol is barely audible, trying to say something. Concealed, Gio quickly focuses on the wound, pressing hard to stop the bleeding. Her hands tremble, but time cannot be wasted. Help should come quickly. She presses again on the wound, hoping that the help will have time in time. Gio looks angrily at Gila and orders to remove his hand, but he refuses. Say something. She sighs. What does he want to hear from her? Praised me. Is he crazy? Apparently. Ignoring it, he calls a command for an urgent operation. Reports an attack with a knife. She frowns her eyebrows, anxious. Does he suffer? He shakes his head. Just wants to see her. Something has changed. As if this moment had to happen. He was born for that. At home, Grandma pushes him. Gosh. He takes a shower and goes to school. He rises, staring down. Did he die? Instead of Gio? No, he is here too. But why at this moment? Why not before her death? This time, it should remedy the situation. They are planning a trip later. Gio asks why. He calls it a vacation because in the summer they could not go. He wants to feel freedom, as far from the Vujin Park as possible. This person should be behind bars. It is because of people like him that the country is in that state. Gio bims. She admires it. She regrets that she has not traveled before. He watches how she thinks about his second return. He felt regret. Now he wants to move to a new home. It is dangerous to walk at night. She will tease him. Who uses it as an excuse to delay the sunset? If we live together? He stops. This is not an offer, but at heart he wants to be near her. His grandmother watches him closely. Something wrong? I go to school, but his thoughts have a solid chaos. What if Pak Ujin wasn't a real problem? Why did he not return to the moment before her death, but instead 10 years earlier? Why does he continue to hold on to hope? Each time passing through this, he is again aware of the importance of hope. Does not lead to any results. He may never have become her friend. Perhaps fate. She tries to give the value of his gaze that asks whether her deep feelings are unnoticed. Silently breathing, she reassures him that her mind is in order, although once a specialist pointed to the same phenomena. She began to mention conversations he apologizes, but she just laughs. Thieves can also be careful, right? Before he has time to answer, Joe suddenly screams, giving rise to panic in it. He jumps, asking if everything is fine. She assures that everything is fine, but she needs to find. He clings to the fragile hope that together, they will be able to find the way forward in this confused porridge from the past and the present. Gio looks at him, waiting for a continuation, but he only shrugs and says that nothing will change. He talks about the day when he could no longer tolerate. It was then that he disappeared. He decided to start everything from scratch. He assures her that he is now happy and all right, but it is clear that he is still haunted by the past. She quietly asks for salvation. His view shows that it seems impossible. He shakes his head and says it's all because of her. This is not what he wanted. She does not understand and insists to find out what he is talking about. He sighs, trying to explain, but it is obvious that the past still presses on him. Gio does not believe, emphasizing that he kissed her for the first time when she was 19. His face was full of guilt. Everything is getting worse, and now Gial is a priority for her. Although she does not fully understand what is happening, memories from past life fill her mind. She feels his desperate determination to protect her, and now it makes sense. She remembers. Gio goes into the kitchen and remembers that she forgot to buy water. Instead, he takes a water jar. Gio appears, joke about sharing, but she ignores him. He jokingly asks her water that she has in her mouth. She rested with water and squeezed it. The high owl laughed. kissed her in his forehead, and went to take a shower, leaving her bewildered. From that day, he became more tender. Gio phone tied the message from journalist Joe, who confirmed their meeting at 4 p.m. Gio replied that not one would come, feeling a new wave of hope. Gio also asks for help. Does she think he will give her up now when she resumed her memories? Gio says it's not just about them. Even if she ignores everything and survive alone, she won't be happy. Gio laughs nervously, noting her determination as something grateful. He offers her help, stating that he has no other choice and advises to enjoy a happy life. Gio is hesitant because of the possible consequences, but Joel waves, jokes that maybe someone is in prison. The conversation becomes serious when Gio remembers the story of Gio and monthly Grisong. Joel evades. At first, he stays away, but eventually reveals that he used Yoons to protect Gio from the monthly Gosan. Gio's facial expression does not indicate its support for demons. Giel assures her that is satisfied with the result. She agrees to contact the reporter, and Giel promises to intervene if everything is too dangerous. He meets her look, saying that when all this is over, they will live together. Gio comes back to reality, thinking whether she has made a mistake, agreeing to allow to live with Gio, to go. He notices her anxiety and asks that she is concerned. Her thoughts are busy. She will tease him, saying that he is a cunning, and he smiles, making a remark that her hair resembles the hairstyle of his former. While they go, her mind knows no rest. She feels anxious, but Giel does not seem to be worried at all. He is calm, almost peaceful. Because of this, it is difficult for her to say something, but in her head there is a lot of thoughts. He notices her silence and smiles slightly, joking. She tries to get distracted from heavy thoughts and laughs nervously, explaining that she just thought while he was driving. He looks at her with confidence as if he were used to it. She is rejected. Giel shakes his head, confessing that he could not be certain, because she could not contact him. Still, she is convinced that it happened. She gets several documents and extends them to a woman, offering to be viewed. The documents, as she explains, she thinks for a moment, but it does not answer her question. Frustration is growing, and she confesses that she does not understand why he has to die constantly. She wants to find a way to stop it, break the circle. Gal is silent, looking at the road, but later casts a look at her. She meets his gaze, feeling all the weight of the moment. She seems to have missed something. Looking thoughtfully, he says that the answer is somehow related to her. She stops without realizing what he means. They sit in a private cabin with a journalist who looks concerned about events. She asks Joe whether she was well with her, expressing how much she was amazed at her accident and regret her that she put her in a dangerous situation. Joe, known for his straightforwardness, proposes to stop everything better. Joe is frozen, not satisfied with such an idea. She tries to reassure him by casting a dissatisfied look. Gal meets her gaze, a little puzzled. He asked if something was wrong. Sheo reassures the woman, saying that the injury is not serious, but still risky. She adds that her ankle hurts, and she is sorry that she can no longer help. The woman nods, promising not to insist on the discussion, and states that she will pay hospital expenses. Gio insists that this is not necessary, emphasizing that the main thing for her is the safety of friends. Lady changes the topic of conversation, asking if a friend Gio has suffered. Gio nods, confirming it. Then she asks if Lady is familiar with the playroom where Pa Uzin was the last time. Lady nods again, obviously familiar with this place. Gio explains that she could not have sufficient intelligence because all the data disappeared. However, then it seemed that her friend received some support from the playroom. The lady looks surprised, stunned by the unexpected news. Gio continues, expressing the assumption that perhaps the Ujin Park has forced her friend to accept sponsorship. Gio, who is silently watching the conversation, suddenly asks if Sung was not accidentally involved. The woman says he only knows what Gol told her. She explains that Antafans believes that Song was involved in fixing matches, and the evidence was allegedly obtained from the illegal site of the rates. However, the case was not officially investigated. He throws the papers on the table and leans forward, pointing to a section that contains evidence of money laundering under the cover of sponsorship. He then draws attention to another part where documents are associated with political funding. Finally, it points to the section concerning the executives of illegal gambling. She confidently states that he will take the files, being convinced that there is something much larger. Ladies, still unsure, asks whether he plans to hide the criminals. The garden smiles, not moved by her questions. He asks if she really thinks that he will just give the documents if she insists. It reminds that there is a certain order of things, and it should be considered who can regret it later. Gila offers her a choice. Either she takes away some of the documents or takes nothing. And finally, he assures that the truth still flows to the surface. Ladies, noticeably excited, says again that the truth is necessarily floating on the surface. Gal smiles, nods in agreement, and tells her to act. The lady points to the document and asks whether Gal knows something about the place mentioned in it. He quickly takes a piece of paper, quickly runs his gaze, and falsifies about the connection with the drugs. The woman explains that there is suspicion that Pa Ujin manages an illegal drug manufacturing factory, and a mediator from the entertainment industry is involved in the case. She assumes that it can be an actor of Tire Kangong. Guyong looks surprised, lifts eyebrows. Guyon reminds him of the party that she went and became ill, and notes that this event was organized by the pre-honging Tire. Gilles jokes with her that she always chooses dangerous places to visit. Then Gilles returns her attention to the lady and rejects the connection with the drug factory, stating that this is not their problem. He invites her to investigate it on her own if she wants it. He returns the conversation to Moon No Song again, the true reason for his arrival. Meanwhile, in the unfinished house, the actor Takung Tire meets with Pak Ujin. The Chin Tire nervously asks for help, but for the second time he warns him about the danger of drug-related drugs, especially for celebrities. It is interesting how John Sin decides to spread drugs so bold without any clear plan. Pak Woo-jin says that as soon as he gets involved in such, he will have to be responsible. Returning to the private cabin, Gyal asks the woman to tell more about Muniki-san, explaining that they are here because of him. Ms. explains that her research follows. Gio received something from a scandal with contractual matches with Taekwondo several years ago that he increased his interest in the sponsorship of athletes. She suspects that he has cooperated with the Win Par. Everyone thinks seriously, quietly murmuring, confused. He adds that if Pak Win-jin has previously sponsored athletes, his motives are hardly simple, and this is suspicious. The woman thinks for a moment and then suddenly addresses Gio with a question. She remembers that he knows about many years of support for Geo athletes, and she is wondering if he sponsors one of the Tapkvendists a few years ago. Gio does not respond immediately, but notes that it is probably not what she really wanted to ask. Lady immediately asks whether he once participated in a plotting of the results in Taekwondo matches. Gio is surprised to respond to questions and looks at the interlocutor nervously. Citing that he gave the money to the scoundrel, he gently touches the cheeks of Gio, clearly upset. He confesses that he does not understand why she is constantly involved in it, and regrets that he placed the traps around her. In front of her, Heil notes that she has already shared the information, but she seems to want to know more. He asks. She should not mention Moon Ki-song this time in the article. He explains that only G.O. knows about the connection between sleep and Pak Ujin. Hyel asks her to see that she knows nothing, and assures that she will contact her again when she has more information. Later that night, Gio returns after the shower and sees a Gyole that stands with a gloomy look. She thinks whether he is upset because he is in question. Without saying a single word, he approaches and hugs him for his waist, asking if everything is fine with him. Eva smiles, although it looks insincere. He confesses to her that he seems to have spoiled everything again. Leo, puzzled, asks what he means. Jill remembers their conversation in the car when he said he considers it the key. He noted that regardless of his actions, the result was unchanged. He himself cannot cope. Now, having restored the memories, he remembers everything, and everything seems like a solid mess. He confesses to her that he had made a lot of mistakes when she was not around. Pakujin also asks why he is not sure of himself. She reminds that he is not God and cannot predict everything. Joel explains that Pakujin always targets her, and he believed that the work was distracted by him. But it turned out that Pakujin was more persistent than he expected. Now he regrets that he did not predict that Pakujin would continue to worry him until he finds something really interesting for her. The old man rubs his face irritated. When Gio saw how Gio difficult to give her matches, he just sought to make her way and remove the obstacles. At first, he did not consider it as significant. He only took care of physical comfort for her, but the situation came out of CI. He calls himself a fool, recognizing that all his ideas were in vain and only created problems. When he tried to fix something, it only complicated the situation, and now he does not know what to do next. She, in a panic, asks if everything is fine with him. He replies that all is well, but the alarm does not disappear. She leans, kisses him, and asks whether it has become easier. He is buzzing gently. She takes his hand, reminding that nothing happened to them and that he just tries to do his best. She tells him to calm down, assuring that she does not blame him in anything. The girl hugs him and asks if he was difficult. Gio smiles and confesses that she would like to return all his memories, realizing how difficult he had to be alone. He looks at her and replies that it's not really so bad. Her gaze falls on the ring on her finger, and she begins to tell him the story behind her. She said she had a ring from a stranger in a difficult period of her life. After a terrible meeting, a man approached her and presented the symbol. He was told that it was from someone else. Then she did not understand because she did not believe. But she later realized that it was for prayer. Since then, she has always been wearing him, thinking that there is someone who prays for her. She turns to Gil with a smile, asking if he gave it. Gio smiles in response, noting that I am glad to guess with the size. Then he looks a little emotionally at the interlocutor and says, "You have always been around, and I left you myself. I need to apologize." Gio laughs, claiming that she was saying as if she had left a 5-year-old baby. But, Gio notes, regardless of whether it is 5 or 500 years, the inability to protect a loved one is always a mistake. She smiles, rejoicing in laughter. She discharges the atmosphere with the question, "Now let's talk about the strange things you mentioned before. What do you mean when you say that you will take some problems for me?" She claps him with laughter, hinting that not too angry. The garden is hesitant, asking her to promise that she is not angry. He explains that as the journalist mentioned, he participated in contract games. He confesses that he had no great intentions. When she notices almost an empty room, she asks whether he is coming. He replies that somehow. He sits down and offers her to sit down to talk. Sitting, she considers where to start. Asks why he suddenly moved. He explains that everything was somehow something she can understand. For him, life is reminiscent of an endless circle, where every opportunity is only repeated. He believes that human efforts to survive are meaningless. It lives in the world, which is pure, but tedious and fragile. Gio realizes that she is the only true variable in his life. She understood it for a long time. She understands it better than anyone else. She tells him she can't be angry. Although at times it seems that she is treated like a doll, she recognizes it. Gal begs, saying that he did not tell her. He feared that he would disappoint her. Gio reassures him, saying that now he has nothing to worry. This is now her main priority. She confesses that forgetting everything is too simple, as if she refuses the spirit of sports. She thinks that Evans did not know that she was guilty, but still treated with kindness. She ceases to cry, realizing that there is no need for it, and hints that time to finish. Gio wipes tears and focuses on solving the problem. Take care of her and never know the truth. Gio examines her with distrust. He got up and hugged her from behind. He quietly confessed that he was wrong and made sorry for everything. He confesses that his self-blame sometimes prevents him from being open. It is difficult for him to pretend that everything is fine. He regrets that he tries to get rid of many unspeakable things, even if he seems to be reproaching. Men over that, they. He replies that no, he just needed to report something. Then she asks if she was able to contact Sung. She replies that the call comes, but suspects that he intentionally does not take the phone. She even went to the sports center, but no one knows where he and whether he was in touch. Gail easily points out that maybe Song has disappeared to avoid a formal investigation. She assures that Song is not so bad. During the conversation, Song appears, climbing the stairs. She calls him closer, noting that she thought that he was not at home because he did not respond to the knock. Song invites her to enter and asks to sit on the mattress because the floor is dirty. He hugs her, thanks, and asks to live well, saying what exactly he wanted to say. She feels his body awkwardly. His neck is stretched. His hands are hesitantly lying on her shoulders. She believed that he knew everything about Song because of his Rico. She seems to know about it. He adds that, although he loves it, it was difficult for him to tell his uncomfortable story. He says it is strange because they used to talk about everything before, but now everything is perceived differently. She replies that they can still talk so, but he hesitates. He confesses that he did not want to voice it, not to look limited. He continues that when a more important person appeared in her life, when she became more busy or for other reasons, he did not want to say anything. She says another man again next to her. Worried, she asks if it causes discomfort. She is already going to add something else, but he raises her hand, stopping it. The dream asks if Gio knows that the money that Joel passed on Pa Uzjin has caused all these events. Joel confirms that he is aware of this and is wondering if he thinks that he can be blackmailed. Sleep only shrugs, remaining silent. Joel, feeling though, he confesses that, although it was not easy, he came to this moment, resorting to his usual. Otherwise, he would have surrendered. She asks what he means, but he asks to hug him again. The face is pale. He hastily adds that he did not mean anything wrong, only the fact that he seeks hugs for the last time. He reminds her how often she hugged him after the victories, and how much he liked it that prompted him to win again and again. Even after he stopped judo, the desire to compete has not subsided. He sought to win, even if it required a transition to another sport. Now he sighs, lowering his head, and mutter again, "I will never be able to do it. Even then, as now, I only see you," she cries. He gently advises her to calm down and proposes to talk. As soon as they are going to come out, police officers approach them and ask if they came out of the house. Gel calls Uncle for help at a police. He asks where she knows him. She asks whether Woojin forced him to contract matches and whether it is the reason for his concealment. She insists, questioning his connection with Wooj. The protagonist stands on the street, watching the news on the phone when he notices that the actor to the Kingshin has become a tendency among the news. He thinks whether this person has a connection with Wooj. Looking at the photo, he thinks that Woojin could act too hastily. He does not know what the next step will be. At the same time, the dream leaves the apartment. The protagonist thinks why the dream came out. The dream approaches him and asks if it is Joel. He recalls that they were already met when they studied at school, and reminds that Joel was known as problematic. Joel replies, feeling pleasant to what the dream remembers, and asks where the Gio is. He warns that she is cautious with whom she is dealing with. Giole, sitting side by side, shrugs and adds, "He would say so, but he has more experience than both of them." Feeling tension, Gio tries to change the topic, remembering how they met her Gra. She runs into the house, howl of it. Suddenly he sits, leaning his head on his knees, and he cries. He comes closer and asks what he managed to say what made her cry. He also asks if her leaning has not hit. She shakes her head, trying to say something. She only whispers through tears. He stutters and eventually confesses that she did not know. She recalls the conversation with Song when she asked him about the relationship with Park Jin. He told her that it was little things, but confessed that he was involved in contract matches, and then fled and went to the aid of Win-jin. She asked why he helped Win-jin, and he replied that he was a good person. He explained that Woo-jin is his only family. This information surprised her, and she felt that she had solved something special in the Wajini password. It seemed like a friend, like a phone number she saw somewhere. And here she shone. This is the birthday of Moon Ki-sun. The dream told that he remained at home because his uncle was in prison, and although his house was not comfortable, he felt proper there. He shared that after meeting with Win-jin, felt relieved and asked if she still believed that he was threatened. Now, returning to the present, she cries, saying that she knew nothing. Everyone said that he had a difficult life. She adds, while he was trying to reassure her. He says it is a favorable situation for everyone. He needed work and his uncle was information, so he helped a relative. Gio jokes that after a lot of lives, he manages well as an underground gangster. The main characters stand on the roof of the buai. The officer asks to clarify the situation. However, the man persistently states that he is ready to guide for them, and later explain in more detail. He turns to Gio, inviting her for lunch. Going out, Gio thanks the officer and follows his uncle. In the restaurant, she confesses that she did not expect to see him here. Asks whether Gio has contacted him. He confirms and then asks why she intervened in this police case. She says she just went to visit a friend. She regrets that she was satisfied with how people showed themselves, including songs, unsu, and even with him. Leaning on him, she cries, feeling guilty for not beside those who are dear to her. She is annoyed by her own indecision, and she mums that. They discuss other topics with laughter, and the Geo plan to discharge the atmosphere successfully works. He notes that Uncle Geo is probably good at him because he has warm memories of Grandma Geo. He replies that he has come to help because he still needs his uncle. The uncle gets up and says he is about to go. Geo also rises and asks whether he is going now, to which the uncle explains that he has unfinished things. He caresses her head and promises to see the next time. After his departure, Geo turns to Geo, asking what is happening. He reproached him for trying to get out of this mess on his own, but he was a distraction of journalists. Kisong asks when they can return to Korea. Pak replies that in 4 to 5 years, everything should be fine. Then he asks if Kisong will return. His uncle is a headache. He adds that his uncle cannot drive him out of the gang because he is too deeply attracted. However, he knows too many police secrets to just get rid of it. Having apologized, he says he is sorry because he was disappointed again. She reassures him, assuring that he will never be dissatisfied with him. Instead, she hates his uncle for creating such difficult conditions for him. She is amazed at how an adult can ask for this from a child. He jokes that he is called a child and asks if she will be disappointed if he has to do what she does not like. She replies that she is indifferent. He looks at her with a question in his eyes. She says he is everything. She pronounces her name quietly. He tells her that she behaves strange. She insists that everything is fine, but confesses that he is disappointed in herself. He looks at her with anxiety, asking why he didn't notice it before. She almost breaks into tears when he tells that Woo Gin, who has repeatedly killed her, is a Song cousin. She regrets that she did not know this because Song never spoke about her family, and she did not ask. All this time it was part of this story. She only knew that he did not get along with his parents. Kaisen proposes to leave the composition and flee as soon as possible, so as not to be caught. The park calls him a coward, claiming that he will not leave him. He put money into the warehouse and wants to pick up the maximum of valuable. Their escape. Parasite, only to feel better. Meanwhile, Yoo-jin goes to home, complaining that the wedding in the rain, despite the umbrella. He notices Kaisen on the couch and asks if someone knows about his arrival. Kaisen is wondering how the cooking goes, and it replies that almost everything is ready. He found the ship and remembered the last meeting with Senator Khan. Senator Kan. The scene shows the main character and her brother, who watch the news. He complains about boredom and offers to watch the movie. She advises him to go home if he is dissatisfied. Noticing her, he throws her eyes, but she jokingly warns that his eyes. He doubts that in such weather the ship will be able to sail. She asked why he brought the computer to it if she was not going to share a password. In response, he said so safer because his uncle knows where he lives. She guessed that if it was something important that the Hayal could not give away the uncle, In the meantime, Gyola at home is raining. Gyal sits by the window looking into the wet street, and meanwhile, Gyal goes to another room to call. When the call connects, he speaks with his uncle. He says you need to get rid of Winjina, regardless of the circumstances. Uncle quarrels him for not calling for days, but now he says nonsense. He warns Gyola that the persecution of Pa Winjina will cause problems not only for him, but also for his company and members of the assembly. Listening to all the disadvantages, Gyal replies that he is indifferent. He only needs an uncle to tell where he is in the Jin. If he does not help, Gyal will have to act on his own. This is their last chance. If the Jin escapes, all efforts will be in vain. Gyal promises to do the next time all that Uncle wants, but now he needs his support. At the same time, she tries to understand what she missed. She remembers a conversation with Kisong when he told about a trip with his cousin. He said that this brother wanted to buy the land, so he went with him. And here she manages to understand what was about Pa Ujin. When Kisong invited her to a party for a bintire, he took advantage of his brother as an excuse. She waved it off, considering it only an excuse, and did not attach importance to the one who this brother. He also remembers how he spoke of his relatives at one gathering, and he points to Pa Ujin. It seems that Kisong has all the time hinted at something. Fascinated by thoughts, the Gal hugs her, warning that she will catch a cold if she remains by the window. She apologizes, explaining that she just thought, looking at the landscape. Looking at her feet, she notices wet sheets and says she will replace them. Gil, believing that it is a trifle, reassures her. They say, "Let him think it is just a sweat." She jokingly asks if she really has so much sweat, and he has fun. He jokingly suggests that it may be because she soaked the bed, which makes her get rid of and blush. Then he wraps her into a blanket. Vina says it's cold. She, based on him, asks for his uncle's reaction. He tells what happened, and she proposes to leave Pa Ujin and Moon-gi-san alone, as his uncle advised. She quietly states that it is dangerous and that he is too. He asks if she is afraid. She assures him that she is thinking positively, explaining that because Monkey's song is desirable and Pa Ujin wants to escape abroad, they will not be able to get to each other. She adds that a return to Korea will be a difficult task this year. She believes that it can be a response. He agrees, noting that the park in Gin can leave Kisung, since there is no loyalty. He also emphasizes that if the park is caught in Gina, many will have a suite. But now it is safe. He only proposes to continue to worry for him and spend time. She asks if it is his desire, and he jokes that she will have to stay in the house under his supervision. He says it's not that bad idea. It insists that she carefully considers everything. He emphasizes that she should only wear what he gives her, consume only the dishes he offers her, and cannot go to the bathroom on his own or meet with the ENSU. At that moment, he confesses to her in love. He then tells her that she is going to contact the journalist to prepare the article and calls them impolite. You need to stop the escape of the Ujin. He made it impossible to have any reckless actions of Pa Ujina and Moon-ki-san. But if it is not the right solution, Gio can still die. Ready to start first? Hyal knows that the loss of Gio will destroy all hopes. He is barely audible, imagining She remembered Gyola as a password when he brought a laptop to the house. He then became interested in what she needed a computer and reported that she could not use it. He has no idea who can be, and it seems senseless to think about it. When the machine moves, he notices that the road is getting smooth and assumes that they are on the highway. He is amazed at how much time has passed and feels danger no matter what. Unfortunately, nothing ended finally. To save the data, you need to enter the correct password on the first attempt, otherwise everything will be deleted. Meanwhile, Jiol, locked in the chamber, thinks whether he has done correctly. Is it wise to stay here until Gio is fighting the world? All their work will be removed. It will look like we were acting on our own, and your real name will disappear, he explains. He says that he has prepared this place for a long time to protect it from the threats of the organization after the Keisei. Putting on the car, Gal asks the driver why he is not going to at least inform about the direction of their trip, joking that it could be his funeral. Without receiving the answer, he begins to think about whether the driver does not belong to the same organization. She asks if she believes that the culprit is a djinn. She confirms this. It proposes to first search the abandoned plant, because the port is too large for both of them. Decide to go there the next morning. Before bedtime, she asks if he wants to say S. When the shackles were removed, he asked how his uncle managed to pull him out of prison and where they were brought. He asks whether the police were involved, warning his uncle that warned him not to go so far as to help. Uncle replies that someone else did it. Puzzled, he asks what he means. Suddenly, he hears the hurried steps. Rap immediately hugged Gio, who ran to meet him, pressing him firmly. Surprised by her appearance, he asks what caused her arrival. Uncle asks Jo about the data she promised to pass. She extends him a flash drive and reports that she has deleted the original file. Mr. Go, Uncle Giola, screams at them, asking if they realize they have done. After the unexpected outbreak of rage, Gio hides Giola and asks his uncle what happened. He replies that it was a high-secret project that only a few people knew, but everything failed. They disgraced themselves in front of prosecutors and even fell victims of blackmail because of evidence. He photographed the moment of murder. He explains Gaul that everything was done to pull him out of prison. He confesses that he has trusted him too, despite the fact that he is not a cop. Saying that, it has inevitably had to happen. Another officer appeals to her, asking if she is such a taekwondist, Mrs. Gao, and brought her to the area. She explains that she came to rest. While they are talking, another officer approaches and reports that nothing suspicious has been found. Thank him before going. After his uncle leaves, Gio apologizes to Gio for watching his laptop, seeing the records and instructions from his uncle. She asks how she could use this for blackmail, explaining that she did not hold them. He is wondering how she managed to get a password. She explains how her at home helped to understand the importance of a key song, and suddenly realizes that she knew the password all this time. She remembers his phone number, which he forbidden to store, and if not her memory, he would have already fallen behind the lattice. He muttered under his nose, which would be better to leave everything as it is. Who knows what he is worried about? He may not want to involve her in it or prefer to be responsible. She never asked for it. She understands that it can sound cruel, given everything he did for her. But she wants him to think about her too. Striving him in tears, she asks what will happen to her if he disappears. He calls him a fool and asks if he thinks that she will be able to cope with everything herself, allowing him to take all the blame. She asks if he believes that she can live quietly without him. He hugs her and apologizes, acknowledging that he did not think through. He is really sorry for him, and she warns that if it is repeated, their relationship will end. She says she will never forgive if he try to sacrifice himself again for her, whatever happens. He agrees and promises to do so no longer. Then she asks if he specifically wanted her to remember his number from the beginning. He confesses that his life was not easy, and he did not want her to find out about it. He was not sure whether she would remain near if he would know everything. She called him unreasonable, who did not know how to act. She asked if he tested her to find out how much she could withstand before he escaped. But she said whatever he did, she would not go anywhere. After work, they sit near the house. She says it is strange, as if they were in military exercises. He notes that although they are outside, the roof and the door nearby. She jokes about how to knock the door with his bare hands. He sighs and notes that it is strange. The door is quite thin, there is no fence, light as well as furniture. However, for some reason, he feels safe. It seemed that everyone had disappeared and they were left alone. Waking up, he found that the place next to him is empty. He thinks where she could go this morning. After completing the workout, he finds it near the tap. He asks if she was running and says it was worth waking up to go together. She replies that he looked tired, so she gave him sleep. He adds that she was worried about the possible lack of electricity, but at least there is water. He displeasedly remembers how his uncle was able to find such a terrible place. There is no refrigerator in the kitchen, and there is nothing to cook breakfast. He says it's time to prepare. There is a village where you can find a shopping shop. He grunts that they had to give a car to move. She reminds that it will only cause suspicion. They gather and go. During the walk, they talk and laugh lively. The supermarket is noticed soon. Going closer, he pays attention to his name and she suddenly stops. He is wondering why she looks alarmed. Instead of answering, the girl looks around, carefully exploring the environment. She asks if she knows this place, but in response, silence. After several unsuccessful attempts to call her, he clicks his fingers in front of her face, turning to reality. The guy asks why she packed. She remembers something and asks if there are still shops with the same name. Although he says that similar buildings are rarity when he heard it, she smiles and confidently states that he knows where Pa Ujin and Monkey-san are hiding. They go to the police department where she is interested in the abandoned factory. The policeman says he does not know because he recently moved to this city. She asks if he can help check this place. At this point, another police officer comes in and is wondering why she needs a factory, assuming whether she is not looking for a place with ghosts. She explains to him that she just tries to restore his memories. She says that, as far as she remembers, there is an abandoned factory in the mountains. The first police officer assures that there is no such place here, but the second adds that it really exists, although it is not noted on the map. He asks whether her hometown is, noting that only the locals are aware of it. It warns that wild boars are found there, which makes the place dangerous, but it insists that it is not an obstacle, and asks the road. Outside, a police officer asks how she learned that Pa-u, Jin, and Moon-ki-sun were hiding in that abandoned plant. She explains that she was not sure whether this place belonged to the Jin, but if her guess is correct, this place is the point of production of illegal drugs, and therefore probably related to it. He asks where she knows it. She tells him that she saw it in the news in one of the previous lives. She explains that this tree of the nostalgia appeared on the Ekrain, and she clearly remembers that the shop was out in the landscape. She said that Junsa was afterwards, as the Novosti. It adds that it would not be full of Volt if the shop would be a second name. He says that it was in prison that he would have liked the newness. She says that he did not see the ego, then what happened after his death. She said EMU that it was not more likely to do with him. She explains that the pursuit of being able to live without it. She spent 10 years with him, but there were days full of loneliness without it. These days seemed endlessly long. There were times when she couldn't get herself to wake up, and when she opened her eyes, time passed without him. She remembers every moment and admits that she felt incredibly lonely. Despite everything, happy events continued to happen in her life, even if she did not want it. That is why she survived. She thinks that many events would be better if they happened with him, but there are those who, in her opinion, are better not to see. Every step brought pain, but she did not stop because of everything she had already experienced. All the victims he brought for her. He repeatedly saved her, but unfortunately, she could not remember it. She thought that he thought about her, especially when she seemed to see him for the first time and again. She confesses that there is another thing that torments her. She sought to forget everything because of a sense of guilt because she hated herself for living without him. But now she realizes that such thoughts poison her and that she wasted the time he sacrificed for her, thinking only of his own feelings. She apologizes, repeating again and again that she is sorry. He sighs, rethinking her words. He first realizes that her thoughts make sense. He says he never looked at it from that side. He asks whether she said what she said before. She smiles, remembering how she confessed that she could not live without her. He sat down, seriously, and confessed that he thought if he died, everything would become as once. She replies that if he lived a normal life and did not resist, everything could have happened differently. Perhaps they would even change their places. He disagrees, claiming that he would never risk her life. He tells her that if he ever gets the opportunity to save her, he will do it without any doubt. He asks if she really was so bad that she wanted to forget everything. She looks at him and says that he did not fully understand her. Nevertheless, she was happy. Life was exciting, and she was comforted. But because of it, she felt guilt. She assures him that she was not just crying. He asks if she was alone all this time. She replies, "Of course, no." He shrugs, asking if the guy with her was a song. She lists those nearby, her mother, brother, and Unsu. She confesses that people were, but it would be better if he was nearby. He reminds him of his promise not to give up so easy. He tries to say something, but she interrupts. That's all she needed. It was the first promise he gave, and she has been waiting for it for a long time. Then it translates the conversation to the abandoned plant in their area. She recalls that illegal drugs were once made there. Someone reported it, so the traces of the operation were recorded, but the main offender fled with a major party of drugs, heading to the western port. Before the police managed to view the records from the cameras, he has already left the country. Hyel sighs in response, without unnecessary words, noticing her unusual look. When she asks if there is something he wants to tell her, he confesses that she is amazed at her memory. She explains that her memories are confused because of her repeated. She only replies that she just heard someone talking about it. They get to the factory, and one of the officers offers to go inside to check everything while others. He believes that the hopper from the inside cannot be hidden, so GEO can return and find the entrance. After the conviction that everything is securely hidden, he goes out and hides behind the bushes, waiting. He thinks if they interfere with him, the man looks anxious, fearing to betray them, but they reassure him, explaining that they work with those two. At this time, Gin and Song Iwao instead of work only wandering. Although a man feels anxiety intervening in cases that do not apply to him, he agrees to report if he sees two again. Returning back, Geo suggests that the Ujin and Monkyong Park can be in the area. Geo doubt whether they can walk so freely, because the locals remember them. He warns that you need to be cautious because they can escape by learning about the search, and it will be difficult to attract the police. Geo is sure that now that their location is known, it is only a matter of time when they are caught. She realizes with relief that her memory is true and the future has remained unchanged. The Tsin, with a knife in his hand, rushes to the Gyola, who tries to protect himself, but gets a blow to the wounded leg. Song, holding the gun again, hesitates, remembering how they supported each other with the Uzin. Suddenly he shoots in Gyol, to avoid notice. When the police pass by, he hears how they talk about a complaint about suspicious activities in the area. He mentally notes that if they were really reported, it is bad. Eating the factory, he hopes that the VV Jin Park will not appear. Here he notices someone and hides behind a bunch of bags with cement. He later hears news. He hears his voice and realizes that it is Geo. He is amazed at what she is doing here. Geo, along with the satellite, says that in addition to the traces of tires, there is nothing. Kasong listens to them discussing that nothing is visible in the dark shop and they plan to return with flashlights. When they leave the place, it runs into the shop and falls. He finds a bunch of boxes and entrance to the underground bunker near them. To hide the entrance, he drags the boxes to his place. However, Geo recalls how ended last time. He chose to save her, even if it cost him life. Now he regrets how everything happened. It does not give him the idea if she planned everything from the moment of memory restoration. Geo assures him that number. She is anxious about his hand, asking that he is worried. He only shakes his head, claiming that it is just thoughts. She switches a conversation to a movie that comes out next year and tells how she looked at him and was amazed. She notes that this movie was recognized as a masterpiece. He assures him that he will definitely like the movie and adds that after a few years, the desert she likes will gain popularity. Now his turn has come. She shares with him memories of many different adventures from her past life. They soon head to the abandoned factory, taking with them a flashlight and a hammer. When they arrive at the factory, she tells him that if they find a hidden place, they will survey the entrance and quickly leave. He nods in agreement. Moving on, Suddenly, he is cold. He looks at the bushes on the other side. She sang, hiding behind the bush, and wondered whether she noticed it, but quickly rejected this thought, because it seemed impossible to see him from such a distance. Hyel asked if she noticed something, but she answered no, explaining that it was her paranoia. She thinks why she feels the presence of something, and asks whether it is not necessary to return. However, she decides to stay and go inside, despite his proposal to go for her. She insists that she can cope because it would be more difficult for her if someone entered the outside. He gives her to be careful and watches as she enters the factory. For a moment, regrets that did not give her a hammer then, to hear the car approaching. The car stops, and a group of men comes out of it. Seeing it, they ask who he is and what he does in the private territory. He explains that he did not know about it and was about to leave. Suddenly, one of the men shouts that someone has gone into the factory. At this point, Song manifests himself based on the shelter. One of the men orders the two other to enter the factory. Doyle blocks them the path and easily strikes one of them. The strongest among them are rapidly rushing on weapons. All instantly evaluate the situation. Sung and its gang members are already on the spot. Their reaction shows that Woojin inside the factory alone. Song realized that they had come after them, and if they were defeated now, Woojin would run away, understands that this is their only chance. Inside the factory, Geo notes many cargoes and begins to suspect that something is hidden here. Hearing the noise outside, she realizes that someone has arrived. She decides to quickly inspect the territory before you go. Seeking, she finds a trace of dust that indicates the movement of something. By pushing a few boxes, it opens the entrance to the hidden hopper. I knew it, she muttered. Meanwhile, Gale continues to fight the gang members, knocking them down one by one. The dream that stands asks if he can swing a hammer on humans. Smiling, he jokes that Joe would be delighted if he became a murderer, though he knows that he did not own the skill. They continue to exchange blows, and the song is surprised how skillful Jel copes with enemies. Jel warns not to underestimate her. Suddenly, one of the members of the gang, laying unconscious, grabs the weapon and tries to attack from behind. Gel reacts instantly. A skillful circular blow knocks it down and uses Delight to neutralize. She looks at the song and says, "You always taught me the techniques of Vanolax and forced me to train." The song of the hotel calls for the change of the parties, and Go is in a hurry to break into the factory to find Woojin. She is eagerly waiting for it to take the first step. Suddenly, he imagines how she grabs her and throws it through. She notes that he froze and asks why she is not moving. He worries that if she applies her judo skills, she may suffer. She tells him that if he does not act, she will do it. Before he has time to stop it, she rapidly rushes to the attack and causes a decisive shot. In response, he grabs her, lifting on his shoulder, and warns to stay stronger if he does not want to fall. She jumps sharply from his shoulder and both fall to the ground. He asks if everything is fine, which she is in line with, although he notes that the situation is too risky. Without spending time, she presses him to the ground, reproaching for carelessness. She suggests that he surrendered to Jiol and advises to surrender to the police. But suddenly a shot is heard. She looks at the factory, excited for the Gil. Suddenly Song kissed her. He tells her not to be distracted. She answers the kiss and then suddenly gives him a footsteps and runs away, joking that he was distracted by himself. Meanwhile, the Woojin plant is waiting for the return of Sun, more and more worried because it is impossible to contact him and there is no phone in the room. Standing at the entrance to the bunker, it rises along the ladder and notes that the door is left open. He thinks of what happened, assuming that the dream probably had, or voluntarily surrendered to the authorities. His reflection interrupts the noise, and he realizes that there is someone else in the factory. It is in a hurry to turn inside to escape, but when preparing for escape, it encounters Gyola. Wizen rushes to run, but Gyoil quickly catches up. When Gyoil is already almost side by, Wizen pulls a gun and directs it to Gyola. Gyoil takes a step back when Woojin orders him to retreat, if he does not want to be shot. Woojin makes Gyola throw a hammer, joking how nice to see him obedient. Suddenly, Gyoil throws a hammer, hitting Woojin, and he falls, trying to evade. From the ground, Woojin grasps his gun and directs it to Gyola. He asks whether Gyoil considers a fake weapon and shoots, only touching his hand. Woojin hopes that Gyoil will seem, but he seizes the gun and throws it away. Gyoil notes that Woojin, as always, is reckless and with force pushes him to the ground. It strikes him, expressing dissatisfaction with the fact that he allowed the rope to live for so long. Woojin grabs a fragment of glass and wounds Kyo Olya in his leg, laughing that he planned to kill him after escaping to Korea, but now it seems a wonderful moment. Kyo Ol strongly squeezes Woojin, asking whom he was choosing to kill. Gio appears, hugging the Kool from behind, calling him to stop and give the police to settle it. She asks whether he is not injured when he heard a shot. She will show her her hand. Woojin rises, holding a knife in his hands, and warns them not to move. Otherwise, it will cause them to both harm. Gyoril whispers Gio, which is better to retreat and block the entrance because it is too dangerous to fight him when he has a knife. It is at this point that Song appears at the entrance and raises the gun before. Song hesitates. Seeing this, the Wootsin yells to shoot. The Tzin, with a knife in his hand, rushes to the Gyola, who tries to protect himself but gets a blow to the wounded leg. Song, holding the gun again, hesitates, remembering how they supported each other with the Uzin. Suddenly, he shoots and yells. He says that despair is not a way out. He asks if she remembers everything. He sighs relief that she has restored her memories. If he could erase one moment, it would be the last seconds of his past life. He remembers a busy pursuit of Woodgin on a slippery road. Woodgin loses control and stops suddenly, forcing Jal to slow down. Gio comes out first and sees that Woodgin is approaching. At that moment, he shoots in her direction. However, Gio recalls how ended last time. He chose to save her, even if it cost him life. Now he regrets how everything happened. It does not give him the idea if she planned everything from the moment of memory restoration. Gio assures him that number. Divorcing with life. Gio whispers that the next time the Giola will meet with a smile, what she regrets, what she has not done before. She regrets that she did not mention him faster, but she is grateful for these common moments. Gio hugs her, promising that next time he will be inaccessible. He calls it several times by name, but there is no answer. Pour tears from pain. The dream sits in the corner, thinking deeply. Meanwhile, Jin, it is still in doubt, returns and sits at the entrance to the bunker. Guilol sits in a cinema behind the girl's back. She turns to him, complaining that he is digging her seat. He apologizes, promising to be careful. As soon as she looks carefully at him. Her face burns with a bright blush. She suddenly realizes how beautiful he is. After the movie is completed, Gale leaves the cinema, kneading his neck through a long seat. Suddenly, the girl calls him and comes closer. He recognizes her as the one who sat before him during the movie. She asks if he came himself and whether he would ever watch another movie with her. Replies that he has a girl, asks for apology, and goes away. When the Gao goes down the street, it fills the feeling of loneliness. He sees the shop she was talking about, the same one selling her favorite dessert. photographs the sign before you move on. Later, Jel is sitting alone by the sea. He says, although the words are addressed to Gio that has already gone. He thinks of life without her and remembers that the guilty of her death was arrested with a Gina who could not leave Sang. He is amazed at what connection could be in these two. He recalls how the hatred of Gina was once wondered, but now it no longer matters because he no longer has to protect. He recalls how after the death of Gio became the main topic of discussions in the city. Everyone was interested in the death of a favorite golden medalist. He wants everything to end as she wanted. Gio says as if she is still near, though he realizes that she is gone. She tells her that now he is the only one who doesn't love her. Sometimes life seems to be devoid of meaning, but he holds on, because she once said that so much still had to be seen. He mentions the memories she left and feels that she cannot flee from them. He tells how the movie she mentioned today was looking today, and how the girl tried to invite him for a date. The movie was interesting, and he thinks what the scene was her beloved. He tells that he cannot approach her family, but feels the responsibility of taking care of them, because conscience does not allow otherwise. He confesses that it is unusual to take care of someone but her. If everything was different, he would have learned a lot earlier. He is experiencing many new sensations. He feels fear and thinks about whether all others live the same. I thought she was the only unpredictable element in his life. The cogged, he senses the hopelessness and pervades, he thinks. He does not seem to be in such an image. The forces will be staged so, as he struck. He will be enthusiastically. He was living without him and gave herself an issue. He hated the ego of him. Hoping to meet her in his dreams, he believes that it would be a true blessing. He recalls how she said she could survive only through his memories. Although these memories keep it here, they slowly destroy it from the inside. His words are heard in their thoughts. Every time he is almost on the verge of disruption, they help him recover. He hopes that the end will come soon. Later, Gale sees the same dream again. He pursues him from the moment of her death and never changes. Her gaze remained invariably indifferent, and he wanted to see it again and again. He thinks that she has never changed even in his dreams. He was forced to throw her eyes on her while waiting for them to kiss. He sees her on a bench near the road. This time, everything is different. She never waited for him before. Having lifted his eyes, he meets him with a smile, wondering how he has things and whether he is happy. She is not sure if he remembers everything, but he is indifferent. He runs to her, hugging with all the feeling that was so lacking. This is the wonderful Manhwa ends. Did you like it? Share your impressions below.